Hello, everybody, and welcome back. So, E3 was a thing that happened this year. A big, disappointing, boring thing. I am Goombasa, of course, and joining me for this discussion, as always, is my wonderful girlfriend, Midori. Say hi.
Say hi.
Say hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Ah.
So, yeah, E3 happened. We did our pre-3 podcast thoughts on what we hoped for, what we thought was going to happen. And then it happened, and now we're here to talk about what actually did happen. So, a couple of things off the bat. We're not going to be talking about anything that was shown on the show floor. We're not going to be talking about any of the pre-show stuff. We're mostly going to focus on the major conferences that took place. And we're also not going to talk very much about Devolver Digital, because funny as their conference was, it was just another shitpost, and they only showed like 4 or 5 things. Exciting things, but not really like huge groundbreakers.
Yeah, I wasn't really grabbed by Devolver Digital this time personally. Like the first time was pretty funny. The second time was okay, and now it's just kind of like, I don't know, beating a dead horse if you ask me.
You think the gag is running thin?
Yeah, especially since they stretch it out over like an entire year every freaking time. And also, I don't know about you, like everybody seems to find this E3 incredibly disappointing. I wasn't super disappointed. We did get good stuff. Like I feel like every single E3 is in its own way disappointing, and everybody always talks about it as if the last one wasn't super disappointing. The last one was super disappointing. The one before that was super disappointing. This one, by comparison, wasn't super disappointing, if you ask me. I mean, yes, it is problematic that there was more, like, game trailers than gameplay, and there was, like, a lot of talk about, oh, this is coming, oh, that Xbox, and what.
I think one of the major reasons for it is because this was a very transitory year. We know that we're at the end of a console generation. We know the PlayStation 5 and Project Scarlet are going to be coming out, if not next year, then the year after, most likely.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people are using to excuse why it was so disappointing for them. And
well, I'm not saying it's an excuse, but I am saying it does make a lot of what we see a bit more understandable, especially since a lot of what was shown this year is not actually coming out this year. You saw the number 2020 pop up quite a bit in most of these conferences.
Yeah, even in the Nintendo one that was supposed to cover only games that are coming out in 2019.
Well, Nintendo was one of the only ones that actually did have a sizable chunk of stuff that's coming out later this year. Pretty soon in the future, in fact.
Right, I'm just referencing the fact that a lot of people seem to be so incredibly butthurt about Animal Crossing being delayed so that they can, make it good, that their stocks once again tanked.
It should be noted that Nintendo's stocks drop when they do literally anything. If you go back and actually look at the dates for some of the major announcements they've had, whether the announcement is positive or negative, it almost always results in Nintendo stocks dipping momentarily before they shoot right back up. Though I do think that this reaction in particular was particularly bad because it was in relation to Nintendo actually showing care and consideration for their workers, which in an industry that prioritizes crunch is not a very good look for the shareholders. Anyway, the way this is going to work is, now that we've gotten the general atmosphere out of the way, we'll take a deep dive into each of the conferences, go over them point by point, and just make observations about whether or not it was something we were excited for, or if there's any conversation to have about that.
Gumi has written up 10 pages of points and notes for us to go through to basically refresh us on everything that happened so that we can talk about it at every single conference. We're not doing individual conferences. We are doing all of them in one go. Join us for the ride. Choo choo.
Yeah, this is going to be a long one. So we're going to do these in the order that they happened. So we're starting off with Microsoft.
which I find hilarious because there was stuff, like, it wasn't major stuff, but I just find it funny that we're just shafting EA and, like, whatever that computer thing.
The PC gaming show.
PC gaming show, yeah. We're just kind of, like, shafting those to the side because who cares?
From what I saw, like, yeah, EA only covered, like, 6 games, gave each game its own half hour in their EA Play event, and most of it was pretty underwhelming.
Yeah, I think that we actually watched some of that, and, like, then we ducked out when it just became, like, sports stuff, I think.
I don't know about you, but I didn't watch any of it firsthand.
Yeah, I don't think that I did either. That was just hearing about it afterwards was just woof.
So we're going to start with Microsoft, like I said. First thing that they started with was a trailer for The Outer Worlds, which was mostly a story trailer showing off some basic gameplay, but it wasn't really anything we had seen before. I am kind of excited for Outer Worlds. I don't like the fact that on PC, at least, it's going to be an Epic exclusive for a little while, so I'll probably pick it up on consoles when it eventually launches.
Yeah, that's such a can of worms that I really don't want to open. But that is a huge issue that Epic keeps on, like, I don't know, paying these companies to make their stuff exclusive to their store so that they can try to be, like, more ahead of the game or whatever. But rather than making a name for themselves, well, they're not making the name for themselves that they think they are, that they want.
Yep, for all the exclusives that they have, their store still does not even have a shopping cart.
It doesn't.
No.
It's such a piece of shit.
But that is a topic for another day, but we'll get it out of the way early just because that naturally comes up. So, Outer Worlds looks good. It looks like it's going to be the Fallout game that people were hoping for when Fallout 76 was announced.
Well, considering, like, isn't it being made by the guys who worked on Fallout?
Yeah, the original team that worked on the original Fallout, and it's being made by Obsidian Entertainment, which has a pretty good track record as of right now.
What is that track record?
I do not have it on me. I just know that they've done quite a few award-winning games, but I can't really think of their rap sheet off the top of my head, unfortunately.
It's surprising to me then, because I don't think that I've even heard of them before this, off the top of my head at least.
Moving on to the next thing, then we had Ninja Theory come out to discuss Bleeding Edge, which is going to be, it looks like it's got a lot of that Borderlands personality, and it's specifically a 4v4 melee combat game. It looks like it might be a little bit of fun, but I'm personally just not interested in online multiplayer arena games.
Online multiplayer PvP games. And I used to be really into that kind of stuff back when I was younger, back in my teens, but that's because all my friends wanted to play them against each other. It's like, I want to be cool, I want to play with my friends, I'm gonna do it too. But, like, they do have a colorful cast of characters, I will admit.
Oh yeah, I like the look and the style of the game, but they didn't really show a whole lot of gameplay, so I didn't really get a good feel for how the game plays, which is a theme that we're going to see throughout this E3.
Yeah, like we said, lots of gameplay trailers, not a lot of gameplay.
We did see some gameplay for Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which happened next. They showed off a lot of the larger boss battles that will be happening in that game. Game still looks really good, but unfortunately, this is like the third year in a row that game has been shown off, and they finally gave it a release date, but it's not coming out until February, which is still a long ways away, which, given how long that game has been in development, is kinda disappointing.
Yeah, but at the very least, they're making it good. They're taking their time with it. And a lot of people agree that, like, a lot of the bosses and enemies and whatnot, like, a lot of what they saw in this trailer made it look incredible. Like, so amazing, so much grander.
I finally got around to ordering the original Ori for the Xbox One, so I'm going to play through that before the sequel comes out.
I have it on my Steam store library.
Yeah, but you were playing it on your old POS machine before, and it didn't run that good.
I just need to jump back into it.
Yeah.
I have a lot of things on my plate, honey.
I know.
I mean, ibuprofen.
Oh, yeah. Then Minecraft Dungeons was revealed. They're making Minecraft into a dungeon crawler now.
Yep, a dungeon crawler that looks like it's made specifically for small children.
Which, to be fair, I mean, that's basically the target audience for Minecraft nowadays. Good on them. I am glad to see that Mojang is actually making another game. I do wish that it was more of an original IP, but it is nice to see them do something that isn't just more Minecraft. Well, more Minecraft in the traditional sense.
You know what? I'm not even going to touch on the game that Telltale Games made, the Minecraft story mode. God, that was too childish.
Yeah. Because you tried playing the Netflix version, right?
Yes, and it just... It's like, we're gonna hand feed you information here. We are teaching you how to do this as if you were a 5-year-old that doesn't even have any sense about you. Listen to this person voice act. Do you like that voice or do you like this voice? Yeah! Wasn't that a good voice acting moment?
Yeah, it really does sound like you are not the target demographic for that game.
Yeah, it was. I didn't even get through its goddamn setup on Netflix. It was just painfully cringy.
Moving on to the next point, this is when they had their first big talky bit. Phil Spencer came out on stage and gave us a lot of fluff talk about how every game is somebody's first and how they're all about helping people discover new games and whatnot. And I'm like, Phil, I like you. You seem more on the level than most other CEOs that show up to these things, but your speeches are not that good, honestly.
And that seemed to be Microsoft's catchphrase throughout this thing after he said that, like, finding your new favorite game.
Yeah, they brought that up a lot because, again, they were also pushing the Game Pass really, really hard this year.
Oh, yeah, they were pushing it super hard. You know, I even forgot about it. I forgot about it, like, from last year. And I wasn't even thinking about it now because, like, I just don't care.
Yep, there we go.
So you can, like, go on about, like, oh, we have all this stuff that you've already played on here, but it's games that you love, and you can have access to it and find your new favorite game.
And as we'll see later on, everybody is trying to jump onto the subscription service bandwagon.
Oh, God, they were, weren't they? Yeah. And that's another thing. Like, I don't know if you made a note for talking about this, but the whole thing with subscription game services and how that itself is a problem, because you're not paying for the games, you're paying for the service that has the games on it, and the companies that make those games can, like,
they can yank them whenever they want. You have no control or ownership over your own library if you're using something like a Netflix of games or a streaming service like Stadia.
Which is why things like Stadia are such a problem. Like, they're not concrete. You're just paying for a Netflix library, and when that stuff is, like, taken off of there, you don't have access to it anymore.
Yep.
It's a lot better to just pay for what you want and then play it when you have some free time. I don't think that a Netflix of games is going to be as popular as, say, Netflix or Hulu or any of those things.
Yeah, because Netflix is made for binging shows. It's a lot tougher to binge, like, 100-hour RPG, for example.
Yeah, like 100-hour RPG, let alone, like, the 10 or 20 as compared to something like, you know, Stranger Things or Game of Thrones.
So I'm glad we got that out of the way early, because it's only going to come up, I think, one more time during the discussion. But this led into a trailer for Jedi Fallen Order, which was one of the games that EA highlighted. They did a rather beefy, extensive gameplay demo. And wouldn't you know, the trailer actually looked better than the demo that EA was showing because the demo that they showed made it look like a really boring, more stealth-oriented game. The gameplay looked very slow. So I think either the whole game is like that, or they just chose a really bad section to highlight. But the trailer that was shown by Microsoft actually did make it look more like a proper action game.
Yeah, which is really funny. Like, EA does better when other people are doing their shit for them.
Yeah, pretty much. Because we don't have to wade through a lot of corporate BS when somebody else is highlighting EA's games. This led into a pre-rendered trailer for a game based on the Blair Witch, which everybody was saying it was either going to be a new Alan Wake game or another Outlast game. I thought it was Outlast at first as well.
I had something in mind of what it could have been, but I can't even remember what that was, because the minute that you were like, Outlast, and I'm like, no, that's not in a forest. And it's like, Outlast 2 was in a forest. Oh, well, maybe it is Outlast. And then, then there was the dude in the corner. It's like, oh, there's some Blair Witch shit going on here. And then it's like, Blair Witch the game. Oh, well, fuck me then.
Yep. But the thing about it is, I don't know if this game is going to be any good, because this is the first time that they've announced it. It's coming out in August. And they showed absolutely nothing about how it's going to play, other than it's a first-person horror game where you apparently only have a dog companion who will help you throughout the adventure. But they showed no sort of gameplay or demo or anything, at least not at the conference itself. Which again, this is all that we're covering is the conferences. So after that, oh boy, this is when it actually started to get really good. We got the pre-rendered Cyberpunk 2077 trailer, the extended trailer. I thought it was really weird that they didn't show gameplay, because they showed a pretty beefy piece of gameplay for it last year.
Maybe that's why they didn't feel like they needed to show us more gameplay right now.
I suppose, but I still think it's a bit of a bad look to not show off more gameplay to show how the game is progressing.
Exactly. Where are my cat girls?
But I will say that it did lead into one of the best moments of the entire event, the reveal that Keanu Reeves is playing a character in the game, and they had Keanu there to come out on stage and talk about the game. And he looked really excited. He looked genuinely passionate about what he was doing. You can always tell with these presenters whether they're just there to recite a script or if they genuinely care about what they're saying. And Keanu seemed to genuinely care. And
he was just the highlight of E3 for a lot of people. I loved the moment when somebody in the audience is like, when he's like, this game is breathtaking. Somebody in the audience is like, you're breathtaking. And he's like, you're breathtaking. You're all breathtaking.
Yeah, Keanu called us breathtaking. I love that, man.
And then he has a moment of just did you guys, what the fuck was I doing? Release date? You guys want a release date? Sure, let's jump into that.
Then check this out. And he points, and you can tell he didn't know where the screen was at first, because his finger was sort of wavering back and forth while he was looking.
Are you the screen? Something that I found odd about the trailer, though, the cinematic trailer, was that they showed your companion from that gameplay demo die. And I wondered to myself, if this is a game that is riddled with choices and branching paths and whatnot, is that just one of the paths? You make a mistake, that gangster dude betrays you, your friend dies, and all of a sudden this blast from the past shows up named John Wick, who's we got a city to burn.
If I had to guess, that's probably what they were getting at with that trailer.
Anarchy path.
Yeah. I feel bad for the next game, because Cyberpunk is a pretty tough act to follow. It was Spiritfarer, which immediately caught my interest. I liked the aesthetic of it.
This is what I think about it coming after Cyberpunk was. Cyberpunk had its and then we got something really peaceful and nice afterwards that's just okay, everybody calm down. Everybody calm down.
Yeah, but the thing about it is, when you do something like that, nobody's paying attention to the more calm one because they're still freaking out about what came before it. Like, I've seen almost nobody talk about Spiritfarer because it had to follow Cyberpunk 2077, which was an inevitability for any game that they showed after the trailer. I would have preferred if they had put,
Battletoads?
I was going to say Phil Spencer's talkie bit after that, because then we'd have a reason to just ignore the guy. But yeah.
If Battletoads came after, it's not like people would have been like, oh, no, Battletoads. No, like, people were still going to talk about Battletoads. Like, you could have gotten away with that.
Which was the next thing that they showed after Spiritfarer, was Battletoads.
Yeah, so let's cover both at the same time, because I do want to say that Spiritfarer actually looks really good, and I can't wait for that to come out whenever it does, because I want to play that. I like the Deer Girl. Everybody likes Deer Girl. Leave me alone. Don't at me.
And what did you think of the Battletoads reveal? Because, of course, last year we got absolutely nothing about the game, just like a logo and some music.
Well, I was never a huge fan of Battletoads personally, so I can't really say that I was hype about it. I'm very happy for the large quantity of people that are excited about it. I do like that, what's it called? Turtles in Time style game, the brawler kind of thing. But Battletoads has always been known for being really hard, and I know that they're not going to like stray from that formula. It's nice to see a new Battletoads, it's nice to see it updated or whatever, but it's just, I don't know, you got a bunch of cartoony toads named after blemishes on the body and in a very hard brawler game. It's just, it doesn't grab me at all.
I will say I found the art style pretty striking. It was hyper stylized. I am a bit disappointed, though. It turns out that Rare is not making that game. It's being made by another studio that are just using the IP. After that, we had a game that, again, nobody is talking about, and I don't know why, because it looked absolutely amazing, and that was RPG Time, The Legend of Wright. That entire thing that took place inside of a sketchbook.
Well, that in itself was its own super stylized as well.
Well, yeah, obviously. They were going for a drawn or sketched aesthetic, and I want to know more. I really liked what I saw, but the trailer did not really give a good indication of how the game is played, like how all of these different elements are going to come together.
And there you have why people aren't talking about it, because it's definitely a different aesthetic that doesn't really, I don't think that it would reach out to a lot of different people. And it also didn't give a clear idea of like what it is, how it's played and stuff. I think that it looks interesting as well, hon. I'm just saying I completely understand why it didn't really grab a lot of people. And it didn't really help that the music initially made like literally everybody think that it was like Dragon Quest. Like, why did that music sound so close to Dragon Quest?
I think it was sort of going for the same sort of aesthetic. Yeah, at least musically, and even the main character looks like a really childish sketch of Erdrick.
Yeah.
With that being said, we're going to kind of fold the next 3 points in on each other because they sort of blend together because they're all sort of on the same thing. They had a sizzle reel of all of the indie games that are going to be coming out on their ID at Xbox program, and I like when they do these sizzle reels, but one big problem I have with it is you only get like 2 seconds of each game and a logo, so it's very difficult when you first see it to really parse what each game is.
And it was made even worse by the fact that I don't know who was in charge of the cameras at this conference, but they kept backing away, like as if they were trying to show the audience reacting, but the audience was keeping quiet because you're showing us a sizzle reel, you're showing us like games and stuff. We're going to be quiet and listen and watch. So why did they keep panning back and like making what we were trying to watch in the distance? This seemed to be a problem at almost every single conference. I will be completely honest with you. I think I noticed it at least once at every conference.
Well, at the very least, it wasn't as egregious as past years. Microsoft has had a massive problem with that before. So the fact that they only did it once or twice, I would say, is a vast improvement.
I don't think it was once or twice at Microsoft. I think Microsoft did it more than any other.
And then they had someone come out and talk about Game Pass for a very long time. They announced a few new games coming out on it. They announced that the beta for PC was coming out. And they also announced that, hey, we're going to give you a great big deal. You can get Game Pass on your Xbox, your PC, and you can also get Xbox Live Gold for $15 a month now, which, when I think about it, is not that great of a deal, considering that Xbox Live Gold is like $60 a year, so that's less than $5 a month. I do suppose it's worth it if you have a powerful PC that can run most of those games, but if you just have it to use for your console, it's not as good of a deal as it sounds.
And that right there, honey, that is the trick. Companies like this love to trick people into thinking, hey, we're giving you a great deal here, when in actuality they're rubbing their palms together going, haha, we just tricked them into giving us 10 more bucks than usual for something that they weren't even interested in before.
I don't even know. I haven't checked on the roster for Game Pass, so I don't even know what sort of games they have on there. But my personal feeling on it is if there's a game that I'm interested on a console, I'm probably just going to get a physical copy that I would own, that I would have on my shelf, that I could always get to.
Yeah, and that is a very good sentiment to have. That's what a lot of people prefer, and yet they're trying to push these like digital copies of games on everybody. And that's why they don't want us to have physical copies that we can just trade and share between each other. They want us to have only, like, be the only one with access to something and not be able to trade it or share it around. And if we lose it, depending on the service, they've gotten a lot better about it. But, like, I remember in the past when I tried to get, like, some digital copy or something, if I lost it and tried to get a new digital copy of it, then I'd have to repurchase it. Like, that was a long time ago on a really shitty service, but...
Yeah, I don't think any of the current services do that. I know at least on the PlayStation Store, if you've purchased something, you can re-download it.
You know what? I think I know what it was. It was a fucking mobile game.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, it's a fucking mobile game. Like, even if you use, like, the same, like, Facebook account, for example... most of the time you don't get back all of your shit. Like, you deleted the game from your phone... all of that is gone. Everything is gone. Everything you've spent money on. And that's why I fucking hate mobile games. Fuck them.
Yeah. So they followed that up with a CG trailer for a new Microsoft Flight Simulator game, which I think the last one that they put out was back on Windows 95 or something like that. I'm sure somebody's excited about it, but I have nothing to say on that. It looks pretty, but that's about it.
I found it weird that so many people knew that it was going to be a flight simulator game. Like, they're like looking at it like, oh, flight simulator? Oh, flight simulator. Oh, it's flight simulator. Oh.
Well, it was one of the easier titles to identify. It's been so long since they've put out a flight sim game. And then we had Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition revealed, which that game is very old at this point. It's still kind of fun to play. It was one of the only RTS games I ever played substantially. And they're also throwing in some new scenarios and whatnot, which is nice. But I kind of lost it when they said, and now you can play it in 4K. And I'm like, who wants to look at something like Age of Empires 2 in 4K, even if it's built around that concept? Those little sprites are not going to look that much better.
Yeah, they still look pixelated as fuck.
Yeah. So nothing else to really say there. They had a trailer for Wasteland 3, which I do want to give the Wasteland games a try. They look like fun tactical games.
Yeah, but like literally everybody is just like, there was a Wastelands 1 and 2?
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised that so many people were ignorant of its existence, considering how much hype the second one had.
I mean, I'm amongst them.
Like I said. I know what I said.
Meow.
Then, let's see. We had the head of Xbox Game Studios come out, whose name was Matt Booty. Let's get it out of your system now, because plenty of people made jokes about his name.
I couldn't help myself.
I know. Literally nobody else could either. Everybody was making fun of the poor guy's name.
Every time he said anything, I rephrased his own sentence to include booty in there somewhere.
They probably could have just left him out and just had Tim Schafer come out and announce that Double Fine was bought by Microsoft, which was the only reason that they brought the guy out, was to say, we bought Double Fine. Here's Tim Schafer. Great. Here's another new trailer for Psychonauts 2, which looks like a sequel to Psychonauts. It looks fun. They showed a little bit of what I assume is going to be the first section of the game.
Yeah, it looked a lot like it was just specifically the first section.
Yeah, it also kind of looked like it was just an up-resed version of the first game. Like, there was not a huge amount of improvement in fidelity, I don't think. Which I don't think is a bad thing, because Psychonauts has a very unique look to it anyway. I don't think that we got no release information about it, which was what everybody at this point is kind of interested in hearing about Psychonauts 2. New Lego Star Wars game coming out. All 9 films, 1 new game. It's a Lego game. From what I understand, they're good co-op games, but I have zero interest in it.
Yeah.
Especially since I'm kind of over Star Wars in general at this point, too.
Yeah, I'm kind of over Star Wars now. I didn't think that I ever could be, because it was just something I was always so passionate about as a kid, but it's just oversaturated itself and keeps delivering mediocre, just bad, lame, stupid stuff. I can't take it anymore. It's for me, it's getting to the point where it's how do I say this? It's starting to feel like what happened to Sonic.
Mm.
It's starting to just become bad, and they're just dishing out too much of it.
Too much too fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we had another surprise, which I don't know if this is like going to be a timed exclusive for Xbox or anything. It was Dragon Ball Kakarot, the Dragon Ball Z action RPG, which once again, we're revisiting the Saiyan arc and the Frieza arc, because that's everybody's favorite part of the series. I like Dragon Ball Z, but every single game that we get based in that universe just replays the same story over and over and over again. You can say what you will about Dragon Ball FighterZ, that story mode was ridiculous and dumb, but at least it was something new.
Yeah, and I agree. I'm really, really sick and tired of revisiting the same story over and over, just in slightly different ways. I understand that this is probably taking inspiration from that old, like, Game Boy game that was like a Dragon Ball RPG.
The Legend of Goku, you mean?
Yep, that's the one. That's essentially what this probably is. Like, it's a new, modern, high-res action game for a home console of that. But that goes back into the same fucking story.
I'd almost be willing to cut it some slack if they had, again, shown some extensive gameplay for it, so I could get a feel as to whether or not it would be fun to play, but we were shown almost nothing about how it's going to play, just some iconic scenes of characters attacking one another and dying.
I think one way that you put it is that it was pre-scripted. I mean, we didn't even have anything on the screens while they were fighting, so it's almost like even the, like, potentially what could have been gameplay during all of that didn't feel like gameplay.
Yeah. And next up, we have a tale of 2 indie games. One after the other, they showed the thriller game 12 Minutes, which is about the man trapped in a time loop, and they immediately followed that up with A Way to the Woods. Now, I can understand why they wanted to show off 12 Minutes in its own segment, because it does look like a pretty intriguing game, and I'm really interested to know more about how it plays. But I don't understand why they didn't just put A Way to the Woods in that indie sizzle reel earlier, because I don't feel like that was a game that was worthy of getting its own highlight spot.
I mean, fair. It looks interesting, but
Yeah.
it looks about as interesting as a couple of the other games in that sizzle reel, like After Party, for example, which I really need to look more into that game. Like, is it already out?
I don't know. It's one that I know about, but I've not been keeping up with the news around.
It's an odd concept. It's like, we need to get out of hell, or like get higher up in the food chain in hell. And the way that we're going to do that is by winning drinking contests against demons.
Now, I'm pretty sure this next part was a point where you decided to take a bathroom break because it was a very extended sequence all about Gears of War stuff. Like, they started with not even a trailer for the game. It was just the main character from Gears of War 4 standing there as she had split personality syndrome while mood music played in the background. And that was their Gears of War 5 announcement. They talked a lot about it. They announced a new multiplayer mode called Escape. They showed a CG trailer for it, but showed no gameplay for a multiplayer mode, which is a very big sin, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. No, they didn't show off Gears Funko yet. That was later.
Can we just get that out of the way now?
Sure. A little later in the conference, they also showed off a cinematic trailer for the Funko Pop Gears of War mobile game, and then they showed gameplay of it, and it looks horrible. Absolutely terrible.
I don't know why they decided to make this at all. Like, I get that Funko is a popular line of, like, vinyl figurines, but why would you not only make a game based around the Funko figures, but exclusively and specifically based around Gears of War as a tactics battle game? Like, that's 3 different strikes, you're out.
I would not even go as far as to say it looks like a tactics game. It looks more like a clone of Clash of Clans to me. And Clash of Clans is about as far from tactics as you can get. So then they led with the fact that they have a new improved version of the Elite controller. And I will say, I like the idea behind the Elite controller. Having a controller that you can physically adjust and change out certain aspects of so that it's more comfortable to you. But there are a couple of things wrong with it. First, I have listened to a few people's opinions on the original Elite controller. They apparently wear out and fall apart really quickly. And 2, these things are expensive. The original Elite controller was something like $150, and I think this one's being sold at a similar price point.
Yeah, this is the part where I took my bathroom break. I have nothing to add to this at all because I just cared so little. I was like, well, guess I'm gonna go pee instead.
Then they moved on to a segment about Dying Light 2, and once again, we had a game that showed no gameplay, no real gameplay, whereas last year we did get a pretty extensive segment of gameplay being shown on stage for the game. So this time it was just a story trailer talking about how the main character is actually infected, which is a pretty interesting idea for a story beat, but it doesn't really get me into the game any more than I already was because I haven't played the original, though I hear it's a decent parkour open world game.
If anything, it makes me worried about this sequel because that makes it sound like you're on a time limit and you have to constantly be moving and doing stuff. And if you relax and stop to smell the roses, then you're bringing yourself one step closer to death. And not only that, something else I wanted to say was that what they did last year could have very well have just been the infamous practice of pre-recording gameplay, posting it on the screen, and having somebody up on stage pretending that they're playing the game.
At the very least, we didn't get any fake gamer speak to go with it.
With this one.
Yes. Nothing else to really say about that, I don't think. They led into an expansion for Forza Horizons, and I will say, I'm still not interested in anything like that. I don't like car games myself, and I do make a distinction between racing games and car games, because car games are games that exist specifically for, like, muscle car buffs, people who like to customize their rides and look at the pretty cars. but aren't really interested in the actual races themselves. I was not expecting a crossover with Lego, though. Yeah. That was actually pretty funny.
That was incredibly funny, and it actually succeeded in making a few people interested in the game. But if I'm ever going to buy and play a car game, it'll probably just be another Burnout game for the sole sake of, like, crashing my car and getting points for it in a separate game mode.
Yes, play something like Burnout or Blur for something like that, rather than Forza. Then they did the whole Funko thing after that. I don't know why they didn't just show it along with all the other Gears stuff earlier in the conference. Why they thought it needed a separate segment, I don't know. And then they had an expansion for State of Decay 2. I hear a lot of unfavorable stuff about the vanilla game. It's apparently still very, very jank in how it plays.
Which is just incredibly disappointing for me, because I actually was excited for that game when it was first coming out. And then I just heard nothing but negative reviews about it. People just talking about how janky and bad it was.
And apparently from the footage that people have seen of this expansion, it doesn't look like it's changed much. It's just adding essentially a new story mode. But what followed was actually pretty exciting for a lot of people. Phantasy Star Online 2 is coming to the West. It's going to be free to play, and it's going to have all of the DLC included. And that is a game that has been available, at least in Japan, since, I want to say, 2011, 2012. And people have really wanted it to come over here for a very long time, especially those who played the original Phantasy Star Online.
I remember playing a Phantasy Star Online game that was an MMO. It was on PC and everything, and I remember it being a lot of fun. I remember playing it with a few different friends, but I didn't have a good enough computer personally in my life to play it, and I didn't have enough friends that were consistently playing it, so it just kind of fell away after a couple of sessions of trying it out. But it was a very fun ideal that, like, opened up my mind to the concept of combining, like, sci-fi futuristic technology with, like, medieval sword and magic kind of things.
We gotta have you play some of the original Phantasy Star games, because they are all about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so is Star Ocean, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty good combination of magic and technology, and it really goes out of its way to expand how the universe works, how they handle, like, interacting with societies that have not reached a certain level of technology yet.
Oh shit, I'd love to play a lot of the original Phantasy Star and Star Ocean games and whatnot. I've heard a lot of negative things about a couple of the more recent Star Ocean games. Star Ocean games specific.
Yeah, I did not like the most recent one, the 5th one that came out.
Yeah, and then there was it Till the End of Time or The 1,000-Year Door?
Till the End of Time. 1,000-Year Door is a Paper Mario game.
See, that's how much I care. I think I own Till the End of Time. I think that was one of those games that my brother sold a bunch of my games so that he could afford, and then he was disappointed in it, and he never finished it.
Should we get back to the conference? We kind of got sidetracked there.
I told you this was going to happen.
Yeah, I know. It's one of my favorite parts of the podcast. So, after that surprise, Phil Spencer comes back out, he reiterates a lot of the points he already said during his intro to the conference, which made it very boring. Yeah, and he talked about a new game that's coming out called Crossfire X. Well, it's not even a new game. It's apparently a very popular online multiplayer game in Asia, but it had one of the most generic and unfun and just what am I looking at trailers of the entire conference.
Yeah, it was forgettable.
Yep. A building gets blown up and that's about it. So not a whole lot to say on that.
Hooray, they destroyed Tilted Towers.
And then we had the one thing that I was made aware of in leaks. I generally try to avoid leaks as much as possible leading up to this, but this one for me was unavoidable. And so I did get spoiled on the new Tales of Arise game that's coming out.
Arise, chicken. Chicken, arise.
Yeah, everybody's made that joke. But as somebody who is a big fan of the Tales series, I absolutely loved seeing the massive leap forward, especially graphically, that the game made from the last one. Like, Tales of Berseria is not a bad-looking game, but Arise just looks phenomenal.
I haven't personally played through any of the Tales games personally, but I do own Tales of Symphonia, and I've always wanted to play through Tales of Symphonia because I actually did play that with some friends that like one day were just like, hey, we need more like actual intelligent human beings to play these characters during this boss fight that we're trying to do in the game. Do you want to play somebody? I played, I believe her name was Priscilla?
Axe Wielder?
Yes.
Yep, that was Priscilla.
I played Priscilla and I fell in love with the little lolly.
This next one, I'm going to let you talk about the most because you are the Borderlands girl. It was an extended trailer for Borderlands 3, focusing more on its story, and afterwards they also said that they were releasing an in-between DLC pack that leads up to Borderlands 3 for Borderlands 2, which shocked a lot of people that they were releasing more free DLC for Borderlands 2.
It doesn't shock me at all. People don't even realize they're still doing stuff for Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel. They still release codes that you can still use in their like online function in Borderlands in order to get free stuff, to get golden keys, to get like extra skins, to get all kinds of stuff. So the fact that they released there's a reason why I was able to get back into Borderlands 2 when I did, because of stuff like this. And now they're releasing free DLC. I don't even have to pay for this. They're releasing free DLC that is going to set the segue from Borderlands 2 into Borderlands 3. I don't know how it's going to work, especially with like, I don't know, it looks like I can't make any assumptions at all, I suppose, but it's just a little bit exciting, to be completely honest, which is good because the initial reaction that I had to Borderlands 3, the initial reaction that everybody had to Borderlands 3 is, what the fuck is this piece of shit? They like that slow motion trailer with the bad music and the saxophone solo from Brick. Like, was that supposed to make us like, oh, Brick? The fuck was that? Like, it was just really bad, especially seeing the returning characters all dressed in black. Like, what the heck was up with that? Something that has always been fun about Borderlands is the colorful, not only in personality, but in design for all the various characters that they have. So seeing all the characters dressed in, like, essentially the same outfit, it's like, what the fuck? Is there a Kingdom Hearts convention going on somewhere nearby? Specifically referring to the organization members in that. Yeah, so it actually gave us an idea of who the new characters were. It gave us names, it gave us classes, it showed us their specials, and it just looked really good. It's just unfortunate that the head of Gearbox is a chronic liar who is just making everything feel like a complete piece of shit when it comes to this game. Like, I don't know what to expect from this game. There's a lot of stuff that I like about it, a lot of improvements to stuff that, like, it just made a lot of things better. It was, how did you put it, like, slice of life updates?
Quality of life updates.
Quality of life updates. There was a lot of quality of life updates, and a lot of it seems, like I said, a lot of fun. I'm just torn because it's just a bit of a mess with the piece of shit who is the head of that company.
So the trailer itself sort of won you over for the game itself, but you're conflicted because of the behind-the-scenes stuff going on.
Extremely so.
Mm-hmm.
Especially
understandable.
Especially with the fact that, like, what was it that he said that there wasn't going to be in this, that there is in this?
I'm going to paraphrase because that's its own can of worms, but essentially during a gameplay demonstration, he said that there would be absolutely no microtransactions in the game itself. Kotaku later clarified the statement, saying that there would be microtransactions, but they would be all cosmetic, like what they did with Borderlands 2. Now, that would have been the end of it, but Randy Pitchford decided to throw a hissy fit about it on Twitter and try to make himself look like a victim and that they were bullying him, even though he could have said, yes, I misspoke. I meant that there would be no pay-to-win elements or things like that in the game. Let's just move on. But he decided to act as though they were trying to bully him or goad him, and he made himself look like an idiot.
Stuff like that is what makes me worried about this game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love Borderlands. I love the characters. I love the game. Yes, it's a looter-shooter spree, but
A schluter, one might say.
Yes, but I have some sentimental value with the Borderlands series because I actually played through all of Borderlands 1 and even a bit of Borderlands 2 with a good friend of mine who I just don't even communicate with anymore. And that made it that much more fun and special for me to play those games. I can still play Borderlands 2 because it's still a good game, but at the same time,
You're not sure how to proceed, you mean?
I don't know how to proceed. I really don't.
Well, hopefully things will calm down a little bit by the time the game comes out. Or if you feel really strongly about it, you could always wait until it's on sale or buy a used copy.
That's kind of the ideal. Besides, I think I'd like to actually finish literally everything related to Borderlands 2. Maybe even get the DLC for it and play through all of that before I devote any money or time to Borderlands 3.
So, wow. Tell us how you really feel. So segueing out of that was very good, by the way. That was very interesting, all that you had to say about that.
I've had it bottled up.
Apparently, yes.
Like you said, like, I'm going to leave this to Midori.
So the next thing that they showed off was a trailer for the next FromSoft game, Elden Ring. And as somebody who hasn't really played a whole lot of FromSoft games and enjoyed them, like I've played through a little bit of Demon's Souls, a little bit of Bloodborne. I did actually beat Sekiro, and I really liked Sekiro. But it was just a cinematic trailer that was so FromSoft that it hurts.
Yeah, I didn't get anything from that trailer. Like, by the end of it, I was actually kind of yawning, just like, well, what was that?
And that is the thing about FromSoft, is that they almost give away nothing when it comes to their games in the trailers. I would actually go as far as to say that Sekiro was probably one of the most coherent trailers we've ever had from them.
Well, yeah, because Sekiro has a story. That isn't something that needs air horns added onto it. It's just that a lot of their games, like, they hide the story in, like, little bits of, like, optional dialogue and item descriptions and whatnot. So the fact that Sekiro actually had a story outside of, well, shit like that was a pleasant surprise from them. And this one, it seems to be, like, going hard with that, like, you don't get no story, just get in there. Like, I think that what I'm grasping from this is that, like, Elden Ring, it's this, like, elves and fantasy setting or something.
I would say so, especially since they made a big deal out of the fact that it's being, a lot of the narrative elements are apparently being made by George R.R. Martin, who of course wrote the books for Game of Thrones.
Right. He wrote Game of Thrones, not Lord of the Rings.
No, that's J.R.R. Tolkien.
Lord of the Elden Rings.
I wonder how many people have made that joke. We cannot be the first to have made that observation.
It's the prequel story of the Ring Wraiths.
No, that was Shadow of War. So, we're near the end of the conference now. The next thing that happened was Phil Spencer came out, and I really hated this segment. It was the segment where they talked about Project Scarlet quite a bit. and it was a lot of pie-in-the-sky double talk. They had no actual console to show. They were talking about how awesome it's going to be, how fast your games are going to load. They had the engineers come on camera and talk about all the new technology they were shoving into this thing. But we got no reveal of the console itself. We got no reveal of a price point. Absolutely nothing to go off of other than the code name for it, which is Scarlet.
So what do you have to share about our new next-generation console, Project Scarlet? It's gonna be good! Thanks!
Pretty much, yeah. And the only other thing that we know about it is it's allegedly going to launch next year, and it's going to launch with Halo Infinite. And they showed a new trailer for Halo Infinite to go with it, which was more story-based. I've been out of the Halo game for so long that I just don't really care anymore, honestly.
I didn't even care for the Twisted Scarlet shit because that part we didn't even watch together because the stream had a bit of a hiccup, and by the time we got it up and running, well, Twitch, something that I hate about watching these streams on Twitch, is that you can't rewind on Twitch. You can't pause on Twitch. Like, it keeps going, and once it goes past, like, whatever point, you can't go back at all.
Not until the video on demand goes up, yeah.
So it's almost like, it's almost poetic that when they started talking about Twisted Scarlet, why do I keep wanting to put Twisted on there?
I don't know. What are you thinking about, I wonder?
I don't know. Twisted Metal? I don't know. But yeah, like, it's almost poetic that we missed that entire segment because of a stream hiccup.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get into Halo. Boy, I don't care how many fucking enemies this makes me. Halo was good with the multiplayer element. It was fun to play, especially Halo 2, back when that was a thing, in tournaments with friends and people around my neighborhood. One time, some teens over at the church at the end of my street even somehow turned the side of the church into a screen to play Halo on. But Halo's story is a piece of shit.
I'm going to title this segment, Midori Hates Halo, not clickbait.
Halo is just bad. It's just a bad story. It's incredibly bad because all it is bad news. It's like, oh, hey, this bad thing is happening. Oh, I went and took care of it. Yeah, but now even worse shit is happening. Okay, well, I'm gonna go take care of it. Well, you took care of some of it, but now even more bad shit is happening before you can even really mop up all of that. Okay, well, that's more bad shit is happening.
It's kind of like the shonen problem, the problem of escalation, basically.
Yeah, I mean, do you know how absolutely pissed I was at the start of Halo 4, where it's like, what? Those guys that, like, whatever the fuckers' names were, that aliens that changed sides and joined with the humans, it's like, oh, there are enemies again? Yeah, because reasons. What? They are our allies. Why did they join back up with the Covenant? What happened to the Arbiter? Like, what happened? They just retconned that entire thing so that they could have more enemies again?
And you just know somebody is angrily typing in the comments already. I'll have you know that in Halo 5, at exactly 40 hours in, this happens that explains everything.
Fuck all of you. I don't care. Halo was already bad news bears constantly throughout the story in the first 3 games, and then they retconned the only thing that I liked about it and just kept throwing more shit in there, and then they explain Master Chief's, it was already bad enough that they explained Master Chief's incredible power that he has that no other, what were they called? The other Spartans that the other Spartans didn't have was luck. Really? That's it? Like, just luck? Like, that was already bad enough. And just all the stuff with, like, the ones who created the Halo rings and all this and that. And now in the trailer for the new game, we find out that the Halo rings got used and destroyed Earth.
So, what I'm gathering from this is you're not looking forward to the game.
Not at all! Not at all!
I mean, I'm not looking forward to it because I just don't really care about the series anymore, but wow, you've got some vitriol here.
Yeah, I haven't played through like 4 or 5, and I'm not gonna play through 6. I haven't played through half of the fucking Halo games. I've played through 1 through 3, and I believe I've played Reach. I don't even remember. It was kind of hard to enjoy Halo Reach, knowing that the game was going to end with all the Spartans, essentially an entire organization / race of Master Chiefs, all got defeated and killed by the Covenant, but not Master Chief, and that one single Spartan is somehow better than an entire planet of his kind because luck.
So that was the end of the Microsoft conference.
Should we do like some sort of like farewell to that segment?
Yeah, bye.
Bye Microsoft.
No, I mean like overall I think they had I think they had a pretty good conference.
I think that they had a very good conference as well. Yeah. I feel like they were like number 2.
Yeah. They showed a lot of good stuff. I would have liked to see more gameplay on their stage, and I was really disappointed with the segment on Project Scarlet, just because, again, there was nothing substantial there. It was a lot of pie-in-the-sky talk.
Yeah.
But overall, they showed a good amount of stuff, and there was some exciting stuff that they showed off.
Yeah. I'm still coming down from that rant.
Yeah. So next, we get to move on to one of the 2 that is jockeying for last place, in my opinion, Bethesda.
Oof.
This was not a fun one. Not at all.
Oh, not at all.
So it started with one of the things that they usually do every year, which was they had the developers come out and they had a montage of the developers talking about their experiences there, except this time it was super fans of Bethesda who did that.
I know, right?
Yeah, and they had several segments. We're not going to cover them when they happened, but they had several segments where they just interrupted the action to have a montage of fans talking about things that they love about Bethesda and Bethesda games.
And here's the fun thing about their conference overall. Something that I feel every single one of these conferences is at least a little bit guilty of is probably hiring people to go out there into the crowd and be like, woo! Woo!
Yeah, there was a lot of shouting and squealing and screaming this year.
Let me get to that part. For Bethesda's, I think that rather than hire people to come out and do that, they invited super fans that they had no reins on, no control over, but were incredibly hype and super, yeah, Bethesda, and let them be in the crowd, and they constantly interrupted anybody on that stage.
Mm-hmm.
It was hilarious how embarrassing that entire conference was because of those super fans that would not shut the front door.
They were definitely the worst of it this year. It was incredibly egregious. Like, usually it's Microsoft who has the worst of it when it comes to the crowds, but Bethesda this year, it felt even worse because the segments where they had the fans actually speak felt very pandering to me. As if they were trying to say, look, despite everything that we did wrong this year, we still have plenty of devoted fans who will forgive us for any sins we commit. We'll get into that.
So you should too.
Yep. So they started off immediately with basically Todd Howard coming onto the stage and talking about Fallout 76. I will say, I will give them credit for acknowledging that it had a rocky start, but they never gave a formal apology for all of the stuff that happened.
Yeah, in fact, they never admitted to doing anything really wrong, if you think about it.
Not really, no. Todd Howard came out and he made some tongue-in-cheek jokes about it, and said that it had an amazing community, which I did some research. Apparently the players of 76 are actually really good to one another in that game. which I guess is okay. But the cynical side of me chalks that up to the fact that the game launched without any sort of real serious PvP modes in it. Like, you know what happens when two players want to fight each other in that game?
What?
If you fire at an opponent and they don't return fire, they take less damage, and if you kill them and they have not fired back at you, basically instigated a duel, then you get nothing for the kill, you can't loot their corpse, and you get a bounty put on your head. And that is the extent of PvP in that game. Unless both players actively try to fire at one another, it does not count as PvP. It counts as you griefing, basically.
But I think the funniest thing about that whole tongue-in-cheek introduction that he did was when he said that like they had a bit of a rocky first year or whatever. There was somebody in the audience who actually said loud enough, "Ouch!"
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
The look on his face when he heard that was just priceless.
Yeah. They show off some actual content that's coming to 76. Oh, well, no, first they talk about the fact that Elder Scrolls Blades is a thing, and it's coming to Switch, and don't play that game because it is the absolute worst mobile game that you could ever imagine. Like, to the point where you have to wait to open loot boxes. Like, even for the basic loot box that you get daily in that game, you have to wait 5 seconds before it opens. And it's something like 20 minutes for a gold loot box, which you have to pay for. But of course, you can pay more to speed up the process. It's just a really, really bad game. And they act like it's a good thing that it's coming to Switch, and yes, it's still free. No shit, it's still gonna be free, because you're gonna put all the microtransaction bullshit into that game still.
Yeah, that game, I've heard, like, just horror stories of how it plays. It's just a crappy-ass game.
And then Todd Howard left, and had a few of the devs for Fallout 76 come out, and they talked specifically about the roadmap. And I'm tired of hearing about the roadmap.
Every single person that came out onto that stage during Bethesda's conference looked scared out of their fucking mind other than Todd.
Oh yeah, there was that whole joke about Todd Howard coming out in a shell of bulletproof glass this year. One of the big things about the roadmap is that, oh my god, they've added in NPCs and dialogue choices, and an actual fucking quest line, which was not actually in the game. It was one of those games where you essentially had to make your own story when you play it, which is not fun, I don't think.
Yeah, it's not fun unless you're a little kid playing imagination in the backyard with sticks.
Yeah, that's something that Minecraft is for. You make your own fun in something like Minecraft, but Fallout relies heavily on its writing to remain fun, especially with how jank a lot of the combat is, in even the good Fallout games.
Yeah.
At least the ones made by Bethesda.
Even in the Oblivion games, like the story, the quests, the characters, those are kind of the best part because everything else is like incredibly repetitive.
Yeah. So they added in NPCs, but then they immediately reversed that by introducing a Battle Royale mode into the game.
I know, right?
Yeah. Which, from everything that they've said, it's apparently like an entirely separate mode that you have to select from the main menu. So it's not even integrated into the actual online game itself.
Which is good considering that it has some sort of nuclear winter thing going on that like destroys the landscape around it.
Which I think was moved up because they realized that people were kind of getting tired waiting for new content for the game. So they did at least get some of the worst stuff out of the way early, but they still had a lot of bad.
Get some of the worst stuff out of the way early, and it's their big IP.
Yes, and they also made it clear during that segment that we weren't going to see anything for their big sci-fi RPG that they're working on, and nothing for Elder Scrolls 6. So both of those were not present at all this year.
Yeah.
But then we had some good. We had Shinji Mikami and his understudy Nakamura come out for Tango Gameworks, who made the Evil Within games, and they talked about Ghostwire. I'm disappointed that we didn't see any gameplay, but the premise sounds really intriguing.
It definitely looked really intriguing. It was probably the most interesting thing out of their entire conference. And isn't that also where Is Nakamura the cute timid...
She was the cute woman, who came out and said, "It's spooky."
She was adorable.
She was fantastic. She was one of the best presenters at this E3.
She didn't walk out there like scared for her life, like, oh my god, they're gonna tear me apart because I made a piece of shit. No, she came out just like really nervous because she just seemed a little bit awkward around people, and it just made her seem all the more adorable.
And she got so much fan art after that presentation. She retweeted a lot of it.
Oh yeah, she got a ton of fan art of just that pose that she did.
Yeah, that was a highlight. Yes. So after we saw that, they had an Elder Scrolls Online segment, which was very, very talky. They talked a lot about how Elsewhere had been revealed, how you could now go to the land of the Khajiit, which a lot of people had been excited about.
I'm excited about that. I want to get into fucking Elder Scrolls Online, and I want to see the Khajiit homeland. Meow.
Yep, they have Dragonhold and Scalebreaker DLC coming out, which is going to emphasize dragons. That was a big buzzword for their conference as well. They kept talking about dragons.
Dragons.
But then they had a very long CG mini-movie that took place.
Hold on. A dragon, I swear I saw a dragon.
Oh, God. But yeah, they had a very long mini-movie play out that was like backstory or whatever that continued from a mini-movie they had last year. And it was a very long segment. And the CG is impressive. It looks epic, but that's not what I go to E3 to see.
That's not even what you get into the online game to see.
Yeah. Because it was a little bit disingenuous. I did not see the point for it being there.
But to be fair, this is a lot more exciting than, say, Morrowind was for me when they announced that. Look, I know that a lot of people loved the game Morrowind, but that's different from them, like, making an entire DLC centered around Morrowind in this game. Morrowind is a great place and all, but we've been there before.
Then they talked about Rage 2 and the summer update coming to that. And I am convinced that the developers and the marketing people are not on the same page about what they want this game to be, because the trailer for the summer update had this really cute, like, Family Matters sitcom sort of thing where they had, like, Goon as the guy who's totally about to die, like, things like that, and Sandworm as the best worst day at the beach. Like, that was really cute and nice, but from everything that I've seen and heard about the game itself, there's very little of that tongue-in-cheek Borderlands-y personality to it. It's basically just an open-world looter-shooter that has a very barren open world until you actually get to the bandit outposts. And the shooting is actually very good in it, but other than that, it's a very drab experience from everything that I've heard about it.
Yeah.
So nothing more to really add about that, I don't think. Neither of us have played Rage or Rage 2 at this point, right?
Right.
So then there's a lot, and I do mean a lot, of talking about the Wolfenstein series. They talk about a new VR Wolfenstein game coming out where it's basically Wolfenstein Mech Pilot. And then they also talk a lot about Youngblood and talk about how co-op is a highlight for it, which they talked about last year. And we didn't get a lot of gameplay for it. They basically said, if you want to try out the VR game, it's at our booth, but we're not going to show anything about it here. And then for Youngblood, we basically just got another trailer for it, which was kind of surprising to me, considering that it's coming out fairly soon, in a few months, I think. Yeah, coming out in a few months. I couldn't even be arsed to write down the actual release date for the game. I mean, I hear that the modern Wolfenstein games are fun shooters. I just haven't really tried them, and there wasn't a whole lot to get excited about at this conference about it, from what they showed.
Yeah, I'm not... I guess I'm just not super into Wolfenstein either. Like, it doesn't really grab me.
Right, yeah. I mean, when it came back, I was real excited for it because it's a classic id IP, you know? It's right up there with, like, Doom and whatnot.
Yeah, there's that.
Then we had them revealing a new IP, which I'm always excited to see new stuff coming out of the games industry because of how much they try to milk nostalgia and sequels and whatnot.
Exactly.
And we had Deathloop, which was shown off, which it was just a cinematic trailer. Again, intriguing premise, but you gotta show me a little bit more than that to actually get me interested in playing your game.
Yeah, Deathloop really didn't grab me at all. Like, it especially just didn't make any sense to me. It's like, I have to kill this girl to make sure that the time loop doesn't keep going. I have to kill this guy to make sure the time loop keeps going. And it didn't matter which one of them died, the time loop kept going. So it's like, why do you two keep killing each other?
Yeah, it was weird. But like I said, it's weird enough that it got me interested in it. And I like the idea that the logo and a lot of the opening cinematic stuff was framed like it was a 1970s B movie, which I'm kind of into. Even the name of the game is kind of a 1970s B movie name, Deathloop.
Death Race.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Death Race was like 2000s, wasn't it?
There might have been older ones.
And then we get to the absolute worst part of the conference, a part that, again, I think it was a bathroom break for you, or you just totally checked out at this point. They had some of their engineers come out on screen to talk for a very extended period about Project Orion, which is apparently a system where they optimize game engines specifically for streaming, and they talked about Stadia a whole bunch, and I'm like, I don't care. Because game streaming is still a long ways off with the infrastructure that we have in place. I don't like it because of the DRM practices that are involved with it. There is nothing here for me to get excited about. You are wasting my time.
Yeah, I think that this is definitely the part that I checked out and just like, I think I might have actually been like, you know what? I think that there's some piss in there. I can use that as an excuse to step out and go to the bathroom instead of listen to this shit.
The thing about it is, too, like, I checked out when I first watched this, too. But in order to make these notes, I had to rewatch and actually pay attention to everything that happened during these conferences. So I had to actually sit and listen to what they were saying, and it was a horrible experience. I don't know why they decided to devote so much time and energy to this, because it was a good 10 to 15 minute chunk of their conference talking about that. And then we get right back up there, woken right up again with the segment that everybody was waiting for, the one on Doom Eternal. It looks really good. They showed a lot of gameplay. They showed a lot of story details about it. They showed off a new multiplayer mode, which is asymmetrical gameplay, where it's one Doomslayer versus two players who play as demons. So yeah, that all looks really cool. I really enjoyed the 2016 Doom game in a time when I was not into Doom that much. So I will probably be checking this out when it comes out. And Midori is giving me this, well, now I have to be contradictory face. I get it. It's not your type of game.
Look, I like the 2016 Doom game. It is fun. It's interesting. It's really good looking and fun gameplay. But this new one, hearing the main character grunt every time he took damage it felt weird. Like, I don't remember that being a thing in the 2016 one. And all the power-ups, all the super colorful neon bright ass power-ups, and all the weird little sound effects going on as he was running around killing demons and stuff, it didn't feel like apparently that's the way that like the original Doom was, and it's like some sort of callback to that, but it was just distracting. It took away from the experience for me because it didn't feel like I was in this dark, serious, badass setting fighting demons as like one of the most badass individual in the entire universe. No, it felt like I was in a retro video game with high resolution graphics.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work for me.
One of the things that struck me a lot about this segment of the show was just how much they emphasized the platforming elements this time around. They showed off a lot of ways that Doom Guy would be traversing the world, which looked pretty interesting because the original game did have some elements of platforming. They even went so far as to give you a double jump, but it was really, really de-emphasized compared to just getting to the arenas and killing demons.
Yeah. I mean, something that I will say that I am excited for in this game is seeing, like, the Sentinel homeworld, Heaven and Hell, and the,
You're one of the people who's actually really invested in the story, right?
That's the biggest thing for me in any game. The story. That's always the biggest thing for me in a lot of games.
Okay, I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
I know. I'm just saying, like, I actually am invested in the story.
Okay. You don't have to get all high-pitched about it.
Stop making fun of me. What's the deal with airline food?
Oh, God. So that was how Bethesda ended their conference. I did not enjoy having to rewatch that at all.
I'm sure you didn't, especially with all those loud yahoos in the audience.
Oh, and you know what? We actually forgot a segment. I was speeding through this so much that we actually skipped one of the parts that actually made me the angriest. And that was the Commander Keen mobile game reboot.
Oof. Oof. Big oof.
Yeah, that did not look good at all.
That actually upset a lot of people that we know.
Yeah. Oh, we also skipped the Elder Scrolls Legends, the card game segment, but who cares? It's a Hearthstone clone. It looks like a decent strategy card game, but it was mostly there for padding and filler. But yeah, the Commander Keen mobile game, that really bothered me.
I didn't even know there was a segment dedicated to the card game.
They did that whole cute little bit about the guy who was playing the game and then he gets transported into the world. And there was a cute mud crab trying to come down the stairs and got stuck.
Considering that trailer had so little to do with the actual fucking game, I completely forgot about it.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And the Commander Keen thing is like, and we, like all of you, love mobile games. Like, what?
For clarification, there are good mobile games out there, but you're not going to see any of the good ones on an E3 stage.
Did you fuckers forget what happened with Diablo?
Seriously. At least they didn't ask their audience if they owned phones.
Like, you guys own phones, don't you?
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's like, oh, it's like a Saturday morning cartoon, but, like, now with all the fun of a pay-to-win mobile game.
Yeah.
Like, it's extra upsetting for a lot of people. Like, the reason why it's so upsetting for so many people, I don't think a lot of people know. Commander Keen is actually an old game.
Yeah, it was the first game that was done by id Software before they made Doom and Wolfenstein.
Was that a point-and-click adventure?
No, it was a exploration platform game, actually. And it went on to have like 4 or 5 sequels before it just went dormant, and then this is how they decide to bring it back.
It's like, we need something to turn into a mobile game. Hey, we haven't done anything with this in a while. I bet nobody even remembers that this exists. Let's just transform it into a marble game.
A marble game?
Marble dorble.
Unfortunately, it doesn't get much better as we move into Ubisoft, or as I have dubbed it in the notes, the Tom Clancy Show. You can tell how annoyed I was when my first bullet point for this is, I hate this, I hate it so much, I am so bored and so underwhelmed. They started with the Assassin's Creed Symphony, an advertisement for a concert featuring music from the Assassin's Creed series, the iconic Assassin's Creed soundtrack.
Yes, that's the word they use, the iconic Assassin's Creed soundtrack.
I just want to say this. The Assassin's Creed music does sound really nice, but I associate none of it with the games. There is nothing about the music that makes me think Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, if you played me some Assassin's Creed music, and then told me it was Assassin's Creed music afterwards, I'd be like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we haven't played the games. I've played the first 3 or 4 to completion.
I haven't played any of them to completion, but I've played them.
Mm-hmm. And that really set the tone because there was a lot of stuff that felt like it was missing from this conference. There was no Assassin's Creed games. announced. There was no Far Cry, which I'm glad for because that was they were sort of running that into the ground with yearly releases. But we saw no Skull and Bones, which was supposed to be a really big IP they talked about last year, and no Beyond Good and Evil at all. Not even a mention of it.
Yeah, that when it ended without anything for Beyond Good and Evil, like, I need to find out what the fuck is going on with that, because I actually loved the original Beyond Good and Evil game, and not hearing anything about this sequel, despite the fact that I'm not excited about like what they've done with Jade and the main characters, but I still am interested in the game, and the fact that they didn't have anything to say about it worries me a lot. And
especially since it's been at the last 2 E3s. Like, it was a pretty big pillar in their last 2 conferences.
And it's funny that, like, I think that there were a couple of moments where even watching other streamers, like, react to certain stuff from E3, like, a lot of people were just like, oh, this is the Skull and Bones insert. Oh, this is Skull and Bones. Like, there was, like, 2 or 3 occasions where they assumed that something was Skull and Bones, but it just wasn't present.
Yep. There was nothing.
Not that I'm even interested in it.
Yeah, but I mean, again, that's something that's shown up at the last couple of shows, and then it just goes radio silent.
Maybe they saw what happened with Sea of Thieves, and we're just like, maybe we need to dial this in a different direction a little bit.
Maybe, but it's still a pretty bad look. To just not acknowledge it at all, I think.
Yeah, something that you've been supposedly working on and have been spouting about, and then just, like, pretend like it doesn't exist for a year.
We do move from from the Assassin's Creed Symphony into something that was actually probably the only big highlight for the entire thing, the reveal of Watch Dogs 3. We got a lot of... It was scripted gameplay, but it was a nice, extended, uncut chunk of gameplay. And then they reveal the big thing about it. There's no one main character. You can recruit and play as, they say, any NPC in the game. Ambitious, but I'm very worried about how they're actually gonna pull it off.
Yeah, because they said, like, every NPC, like, they're all different. Like, they're all voiced. This and that and this and that. It's just like, how many of these NPCs are going to look, act, and even talk the same?
Yeah, are they going to have, like, is there going to be a granny class where all of the grannies are just pre-built out of certain assets, or hackers, or brawlers, or whatever? Because every character has, like, a class associated with them, like enforcer, or hacker, or spy, or things like that. But it did get me more interested in this game than I ever was in the first 2 games, so that is good.
Yeah, I will admit that this one actually looks genuinely interesting compared to the first 2.
Yes.
The first one had me somewhat interested at first, but then as it got closer and closer to release and then actually released, it just wasn't what I was expecting it to be, and it was just bad. This one actually genuinely looks interesting and fun.
Watch Dogs 2, from what I understand, is a fun game if you don't use any of the guns. Because, because if you use guns, it makes the game super easy and generic, but if you actually go through the missions and try to stealth them, like actually use your hacker abilities, the game suddenly becomes much more fun. Which is why I say, if that's the case, why didn't they just remove gunplay entirely? And just stop trying to be a GTA clone and actually make something a bit more unique. Because we've already been shown that there's gunplay in this new one, and I'm worried it's going to be another situation where I'm going to have to handicap myself to actually have a good time with it.
Which is, like, that just made me think of stuff that they do in a lot of games, where it's just like, hey, you unlock this power-up. It detriments your gameplay to make it harder. Yay!
Yeah, pretty much. Then we move on to one of the weirdest segments, the advertisement for that TV show that the actor from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is doing. That is basically like The Office, but focusing on an MMORPG development office.
Yeah, a game development studio that works on an MMORPG, which is I feel very clearly a knockoff of World of Warcraft, if anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a fake game, so...
Yeah, but yeah, that segment, it was very, like, what the fuck was that?
It was a TV segment. Microsoft and even Ubisoft have done segments like that in the past, and I say the same thing every single time. Why is this on an E3 stage? This is not where you should be talking about things like that. Like, that's something you announce in the after show or during the pre-show to get people worked up and ready for your stuff. To me, that just shows that they didn't have enough actual gameplay stuff to announce to fill the allotted time for their conference.
Yeah.
Which also brings us to another thing that they used as padding, talking about the new season for esports for Rainbow Six Siege. We did get a brief trailer showing off, like, a new character class, like a Secret Service agent.
Yawn.
Yeah, pretty much. That was the whole thing. That was pretty much how I felt through the entire conference. There was nothing really expansive about this segment. It was just, hey, esports are a thing. Rainbow Six Siege is a thing. They go great together. Let's move on. We got a brief trailer for Adventure Time characters coming to Brawlhalla. I hear it's a decent free-to-play arena battler.
I have heard from some friends of mine that actually do play Brawlhalla, that Finn and Jake and Princess Bubblegum, they are skins.
So they're not actually unique characters in their own right.
No, they are skins for existing characters that just have, like, slightly different animations and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Unique animations for their moves and whatnot, but they are just skins for existing characters in the game.
It also strikes me as a really weird move, considering that the show is over now and has been over for several months.
Not even months. It's been over for a long while.
It just feels strange to have that sort of crossover, but then again, I guess there is still a market for Adventure Time stuff.
I guess. I mean...
And then guess what? We have Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint. We get a CG trailer for it, followed by a dog is brought out on stage to distract us all from the fact that they're talking about a game that they have no actual gameplay for.
Is that what was going on there?
Yeah, they brought Bam Bam the dog out on stage, and the guy who plays the villain of the main game, I guess he was a big-name actor, but I didn't recognize him, who talks at length about what sort of game it is, and surprise, it's a Tom Clancy shooter game.
I thought the dog's name was Ben Ben.
Ben Ben, Bam Bam, it was something like that, but...
Yeah, and it's funny that, like, a lot of people are like, the highlights of this E3 was Keanu Reeves and Ben Ben.
Yeah.
But, can I just say that anything related to Tom Clancy at this point is boring as shit to me?
Yeah, you can say that.
Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six... Splinter Cell even, like, just...
Which hasn't even seen a new game in years.
They're all the same thing. They're, like, army-related individuals fighting the good fight against army-related individuals.
Yep.
It's boring.
And it just strikes me as really weird that they're still using they must still have the rights to his name, because Tom Clancy has been dead for years now.
Yeah, and yet they keep slapping his name on anything that holds any resemblance to his legacy franchise.
I guess so, yeah. The Division, that's another one.
Yep, that's another one.
Then they had somebody come out on stage and talk about, I guess it's supposed to be like an online community for Ghost Recon called Delta Company. Like, they talked about you can go here and you can talk with other fans and you can make fan art, as if things like that hadn't been running independently already.
Yeah, and can we just get out of the way early the mobile game?
That's actually the next point.
Oh.
Yeah, Tom Clancy's Elite Squad, which is a crossover game featuring the very memorable characters from all the other Tom Clancy games. The Division, Ghost Recon, Splinter Cell. Like, the only character I recognized in that entire lineup was Sam Fisher, because he is actually one of the most unique characters to come out of any Tom Clancy game.
Yeah, and they ruined him, like that fucking opening for him, the lone wolf, now running with a pack.
Yeah, it looks like a mobile tactics RPG. There's nothing really more to say about it. I actually saw a great joke on Twitter. Somebody said, when Nintendo decided to make a crossover, we got Super Smash Brothers. When Ubisoft decides to do a crossover, we get a shitty little mobile game. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Then we had the Just Dance segment, and I will give them credit. They didn't spend long on it. They haven't spent long on Just Dance for several years. They basically just have all the actors come out, do a little dance, say the game is coming, and then they leave. Though I do find it hilarious that these games are still getting released on the Wii.
Yeah, that baffled a lot of people. Like, wait a minute, it's being released on the Wii?
Though
really?
I did some research, and apparently hospitals buy Wii's up cheap and get things like Just Dance for rehabilitation. So I guess so long as there's a market for it. I do find it hilarious that it is being released on the Wii, but not the Wii U.
I know, right?
That thing is well and truly dead.
Well, we actually know that it's going to get bought if we put it on the Wii. Oh.
Note to self, add in some air horns after that. They teased a new For Honor event, which is only running until the end of the month, and then it's going to be over, but they decided it was a big enough announcement to give it its own cinematic trailer. It wasn't an expansion, it is just an event that's going to end at the end of the month. And can I say, I'm still really surprised that For Honor is running. I had thought that with as rocky a start as it had, that Ubisoft would have just moved on from that game. But no, apparently it's still being supported fairly regularly.
They're still injecting it with life enzymes.
And then we get a very brief glimpse at another Rainbow Six game, Quarantine. It's Rainbow Six, but with zombies.
Yay! Everybody knows that zombies and the military go great together. Just ask Call of Duty.
Yep, and it wasn't even that extensive as a segment. It was basically just a quick little CG trailer of somebody in darkness being infected, and then his partners came in to try and get him to an extraction point, and that was it. They say it's going to be a 3-player multi-co-op shooter, which is, I think it's already been released as a gameplay mode or whatnot. It says it's available now and in my notes, but by this point I was starting to check out again, even while I was trying my damnedest to pay attention. Division 2. Do you see why I named this the Tom Clancy Show at this point?
Oh, yeah. Like, I saw it when you said it while we were initially watching all this shit.
Yep, so they had a thank you trailer for the players of Division 2. They talked more about their roadmap. I hate that term so much. They talked more about the new big expansion that's coming out for the game.
I also hate it when they use the term iconic, because like they clearly don't know what the word iconic means.
Yeah, and they haven't since the first Watch Dogs came out, when they were trying to get you to buy the iconic special edition with it. But yeah, so more stuff coming to the Division 2. I don't care. I don't know many people who care. If it's doing well, good on it, but it's like, and that's another thing. Out of everything that I have talked about, how much of this stuff has been an expansion or a teaser for new content for a new game? They have announced very little actual new stuff. We got a new mobile game and Watch Dogs 3, but so much of this is for stuff that is already out, like expansions for stuff that they are already doing. This is draining, folks. We're probably going to take a quick break after this one before we go into the last two. But anyway, that's when the next announcement that they had was for Uplay Plus, which is their version of the Game Pass and EA's Origin and PlayStation's PlayStation Now. It's their game Netflix shtick. It's going to be It's going to be $15 a month. And it's only going to be Ubisoft games, remember. Only stuff that they have the rights to, because it's not like Microsoft, who is a first-party publisher and therefore can make more deals with other third-party publishers. It's just stuff that Ubisoft owns.
Yep.
Excellent commentary.
All I'm saying is that, like, it's just another game streaming service, and it's probably less substantial than most other ones that I know about.
Yep. I mean, there's not a whole lot that we can add to this at this point. We've covered most of the bases with these streaming and Netflix services that are coming out for games.
Mm-hmm.
So next, they did show something that was a little bit more unique, a new roller derby-esque game that was called Roller Champions. And they said that it was going to come out. The beta is already up, and you could play it right after the show, which good on them. It did kind of look interesting at the very least, but again, I'm not that into like team-based multiplayer games anymore.
Yeah.
Especially ones based on sports, I'll say that much.
Yeah, I mean, the roller derby game did look interesting, like you say, but...
At least there was some color in it, too. Like, this was a very drab gray conference because of all of the Tom Clancy games, which only seem to have two different colors, black and gray.
In before they team up with Sega and get Jet Set Radio characters or skins for their roller derby game.
Can we just have a new Jet Set Radio game? I would like that. That would be great.
Yeah.
And then that was basically the end of the conference. The last thing that we had was Yves Guillemot come out on stage to wind down the show before revealing another new game that they're working on. We only got a very small teaser for it called Gods and Monsters, and it was the most artistic, most colorful game that they had on stage all night, and it was a very underwhelming note to end on, I feel, because it was basically nothing. You showed us a logo and a very brief cinematic teaser for it, but other than that, you had nothing.
And also tried to get us hyped for it by telling us that who worked on it? Was it like the people that did...
It was the people who made Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Okay, yeah. It's like, because everybody loves Assassin's Creed Odyssey, especially after that recent DLC or whatever have you.
Let's not get into that again. But yeah, there you go. That was Ubisoft. And like I said, going over it again in my mind, I do think that Bethesda edges them out just slightly for being better. I do think Ubisoft was the absolute worst this year.
Yeah. I gotta agree with you there. I mean, both Bethesda and Ubisoft are fighting for last place, but I guess after just going over how fucking boring Ubisoft was with their Tom Clancy show, it doesn't even compare to Bethesda, which, while shitty, I don't know, it had color.
Yeah, they at least had some interesting things to talk about that didn't all revolve around one man's name.
Yeah.
So we are going to take a quick break. I'll probably put in some nice public domain music here for like a couple of seconds. We're just going to take a quick break and ready ourselves for the last two conferences we got to talk about. So, see you guys in a second. Bye.
Yep.
Break time.
Hello and welcome back. It's been like 5 seconds for you, but for us it's been like 10 minutes of just sitting around and trying to recover from the utter boredom that was the last two conferences.
20 minutes, actually.
20 minutes. Thank you, Midori. My sense of time is nowhere to be found. Yeah. So, moving on from the bore fest that was Ubisoft, finally we're starting to get into something a little bit more interesting with Square Enix, who actually had a proper conference this year.
Yeah, which was a complete and utter surprise, especially considering that everybody was going into this thinking they're going to talk about the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and then what? Like, what else could they possibly talk about? But I guess a lot of people don't realize that Square Enix does have, like, a lot of different properties than just Final Fantasy under their belt.
Yes, they also have Dragon Quest.
And they also have Life is Strange.
Yep. Well, we'll get into that. So they did start off with Final Fantasy VII. They led with that, which pretty much everybody felt that they'd either do it at the beginning or the end. And I'm glad that they did it at the beginning rather than trying to use it as, like, a string to keep people interested throughout the rest of the conference.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty substantial amount of stuff that they talked about. They showed off the new active time battle system, how they incorporated that into a live-action hack-and-slash battle system, how materia is going to work, how every character can be switched to independently. We got our Tifa reveal, which of course made everybody really happy, except for people who thought that her bust was too small for some reason now.
To be fair, they made her butt bigger.
Yeah. She got thighs for days.
But yeah, the problem with the whole big breast thing is that a lot of feminists were labeling her as a sex object, and the only thing that was drawing anybody to her was her breasts, and it was objectifying women. And there were a lot of big-breasted women that were pissed about this, like women that naturally have big breasts, because like they actually have somebody that they can identify with who is more than just her breast size.
Yeah.
She's a badass. She's a deep character with story that does a lot in the story and kicks monsters' asses with her bare hands. She is an amazing character, and they felt like the fact that she had large breasts didn't mean anything to her character. So, like, you'd argue, then what's so bad about her not having large breasts? It's the principle. Like,
the thing is, though, her bust is still impressively large. It's just more realistic now.
Fair. It's just an annoying bag of beats in itself.
Yeah. I will say, they showed a lot of impressive stuff. I'm still not really on board with the remake, honestly. Like,
yeah.
I don't hate the idea of it. I just don't see anything to get me excited for it. Even Square Enix themselves have admitted they don't know how many episodes the game is going to be split into.
But they're assuming 3. Which is why I find it strange that, look, I know that the Midgar section is probably the best section of the game, and they've apparently expanded that section so much that it is apparently worthy of its own game. Literally to the point that they are going to charge full price for part 1 of the game.
I got the same vibe watching the boss battle demo that they had on stage that I got watching somebody go up against bosses in Final Fantasy 15. I just saw something that was really hollow and really repetitive.
Yeah.
It does not excite me. I will wait and see how this whole thing plays out, but I just don't think that this remake it's not going to supplant the original, that's for sure.
Definitely not. I don't even know what else to say specifically about this.
Well, there's nothing to say. I think we went over a lot of the problems that we had with it during our pre-3 podcast, and this demonstration didn't really do a whole lot to allay those fears. Not really.
Yeah.
They followed that up with a trailer for Life is Strange Episode 2, which I was under the impression that had already come out.
Yeah, I was too. At least, like, 1 or 2 parts of it, because they're doing it episodic as well, just like the first one.
Yeah, neither of us have really played any of the Life is Strange games, so I don't have a good basis for...
Yeah, and knowing the way that Life is Strange 1 ends, the huge... That decision at the end of Life is Strange 2 is just... I mean, not 2,
the
1.
original.
The original is just so baffling to me, because how does your best friend not dying... I get the butterfly effect and everything, but how does your best friend not dying cause a massive tornado that is going to destroy and kill everyone and everything in your hometown? Like, that just doesn't make any feasible sense to me. And like, it's like, I don't want to get into that. I don't.
Yeah, I think it's also important to remember that, again, we haven't really played it, so...
Yeah, this time around the gimmick seems to be, rather than the main character being able to travel through time, the main characters...
are Jedi.
Yeah, they have telekinetic powers. They have force powers.
Pretty much, yeah. So the next thing that they showed off was a trailer for the Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles remaster, which makes me very happy. I was a big fan of the original.
Me too. I actually liked Final Fantasy the Crystal Chronicles.
And I'm just really happy that now we'll be able to play the multiplayer mode in it, which was a fun multiplayer mode. But you had to have Game Boy Advances and link cables to be able to play it in its original state. You couldn't just use GameCube controllers.
That was an annoying thing about the Crystal Chronicle games. They tried to force you to use certain gimmicks that they were trying to push on you.
Mm-hmm.
Like with Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, the original one, which I love that we both specified the original one.
Yeah.
In the original one, in order to play multiplayer in that, you couldn't use just fucking controllers. You had to use Game Boy Advance SPs with link cables to the GameCube. And the second one, if you wanted to play that one multiplayer, you had to use the Wii's Wi-Fi functionality to connect with people online, which was something that they were trying to push heavily on people at the time. I only remember one other Crystal Chronicles game, and that was the Crystal Bearers.
Yes, that was the DS one, wasn't it?
No, it was on the Wii as well.
Ah.
And this one actually utilized the Wii motion controls. In fact, that was like the entire thing about the game. And it was a genuine sequel to the original games, apparently, in that it literally had all the same races and whatnot. Like, it was interesting how they tried to build more story by making the weird little onion people into like this dwarven race that had taken over the world, and taking the mysterious fluffy race of bird-headed people that wear armor that you can't see their faces.
The
like,
Ukes.
Yeah, sealing them in another dimension, and now they're coming back and want revenge. Like, it was an interesting ideal, but like I said, it was just trying to push that Wii motion control gimmick, and the game just didn't do well.
I actually have that on my shelf, and I don't think to this day I have ever played it. I picked it up for like $5 off of eBay, and I have not actually bothered to sit down and play the game yet.
You know what? That is one game that we are going to have to do a Let's Play of. And we're going to have to do a Let's Play of that side by side with Dragon Quest swords.
Spoilers! So after that, nothing to really say about the next thing on the list. It was a trailer for the Steam version of Octopath Traveler. Great game. Go pick it up. Play it on the Switch, though, because that's what it feels like it was made for, and also having it on the go is really, really nice.
Yeah. They're just trying to expand the horizons that it can be played on.
It's interesting because Square Enix actually had a lot of re-releases and remasters, but it was for stuff that actually kind of looked interesting. Like, for example, the next one was for the game The Last Remnant, which I don't really know much about, but apparently it was a situation where it was available, but then there was a conflict between the developer and the publisher, and it was yanked from distribution. So it's actually kind of hard to find the original version of the game. So to see that coming back and actually being able to play a game that I had missed out on makes me very happy. Dragon Quest Builders 2 was a thing that is happening, and it's happening very soon. It looks like it's the original, but with more stuff in it, which makes me happy. I really liked the original game.
I really need to finish the original game. I need to go back into that.
What did you think of what you played?
Of what I actually played of the original game, I thought that it was very interesting, very fun. It's a very unique game, and it's not Minecraft. Like, a lot of people try to call it Minecraft, but it's not.
No.
It's so much different from Minecraft.
It actually has a story, for one.
Yeah, it actually has a story. It has a set story. It has a wider variety of monsters pulled from the Dragon Quest universe. It has it has a different perspective. It's not first person. It has way better graphics. Yes, the landscape itself is blocky and square because that's just an easier dimension to build and work with. But like, there's just so much more to it. It's a lot more interesting, and like you said, it actually has a fucking story.
Yeah.
It was very interesting, like, building that guarded gate with, like, spikes and flamethrowers and whatnot to keep out the monsters that were invading.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing. It's not like, oh, hey, it's nighttime. Now there's just monsters everywhere that there isn't light. No, like, it's like monsters are invading the town that you're building, which is a beacon in this just dark, wild abyss. So, Dragon Quest Builders is a very, very interesting and fun game, and I do not agree with a lot of the shit posters. I've been dealing with a lot of shit posters for a lot of stuff that I'm actually interested in related to this E3. That was something that I was going to bring up during the Final Fantasy VII Remake thing. There were shit posters, like, I have shit posters in a particular server that I'm in. And it was always fun going back through these conferences that they could react to live with their text and whatnot. But for example, the Tifa thing, they were laughing and saying Tifa never, we'll see her in like 30 years, like all kinds of shit. And then Tifa was revealed and they were just like, oh, well. It was always funny seeing like their defeated reactions when the stuff that they've been shitting on about the game about any game for a long time, like, essentially, they thrive on being able to make fun of these certain things, and when that gets taken away from them, they get pissed because it ruins their fun.
Yeah.
And we'll get more into that in the Nintendo conference. But yeah, Tifa for Final Fantasy VII's Remake and Dragon Quest Builders 2. Like, those were a couple of things that they were shitposting about, and they're still shitposting about Dragon Quest Builders 2, because like I said, they're just calling it Minecraft 2.
Of course.
Like,
even though that joke should have died with the first one.
Yeah. And I remember one of them posted a skin of Erdrick from the first Dragon Quest game. Like, they posted a skin for him on a Minecraft model, and it's like, oh, they have a skin for Erdrick in Minecraft, and they're like, what are you talking about? That's Dragon Quest Builders 2. It's the exact same game. I'm just like, you guys can stop anytime.
But they're not going to.
No, they're not. It's a bit annoying when it comes to stuff that I actually care about.
Yeah. So next we had a brief trailer for the Square Enix Collective, which I didn't realize was a thing, but apparently Square Enix has been publishing a few indie games every year now, and the Collective is basically their ID at Xbox, just not nearly as expansive. Gave us a basic sizzle reel of a few of the titles they've done before, which led into highlighting the two new ones that are coming out, I believe, this year. The first one was an RC Pro-Am style game, or Micro Machines style racing game, by a team called Original Fire Games, and the gimmick is it's using all real-world cars. Not really a whole lot of gameplay shown for that, and if it's an RC Pro-Am game, it could be a little bit of goofy fun, but I don't see it being something with a lot of staying power. And the other one that they highlighted was an online shooter that has apparently been going on for a while, but they're highlighting it now for some reason, called Battalion 1944, which is an online World War II shooter that does nothing to make me think of it standing out from any of the other online World War II shooters. I mean, it looks like a decent, competent game. It looks very samey to me to everything else that's set in that setting, especially since it's just a multiplayer game.
And I have nothing to say about either of these games.
Okay, then, let's move on. We had a cute advertisement letting us know that Square Enix music is now available on a bunch of music streaming services.
And I feel like this explains exactly why they won't let any of that music be in Super Smash Brothers. Because then Super Smash Brothers, with their way that they do music, that you can actually set up a playlist and listen to the music that's in the game on the go as if your Switch was an MP3 player, that music is music that they want for themselves to use in their streaming services.
Well, they were already incredibly stingy with just anything related to Final Fantasy for that game. Like, they basically said, you can't use anything that wasn't already in Smash Bros. 4, and Cloud can't appear in any of the cinematics for World of Light. So beyond that, it's nice that they're releasing it onto things like Spotify. We've got a trailer for upcoming Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC, yay!
That nobody talked in, like they all talked through text that was going on while their lips moved.
Like most things related to Kingdom Hearts, it made no real sense and gave me absolutely no idea what the DLC was supposed to be about.
Yeah, especially considering that it just showed a bunch of gameplay of, I don't know, you playing as the other characters battling against the organization members during the final battle.
Yeah.
Which I think was already in the original game. So, like, I don't have a lot of hope for whatever this DLC shit is.
We got our Final Fantasy XIV segment, which it was basically them just talking about how well it was doing, and they have a new expansion coming out for it called Shadowbringers. 14 has apparently been doing very, very well, but I, being the person that I am, have never really tried any MMO for an extended period of time, so I don't really have a lot to say on this.
I actually have a few friends that play Final Fantasy XIV, and it makes me even more so want to jump into this MMO and try it out and stuff. They're adding Vieira. Fucking Vieira.
So I guess I know where I'll find you pretty soon. We got another trailer for Dying Light 2. It had some nice music, but it doesn't show us anything new. And it was basically just a reminder that, yes, the game is coming, which seemed kind of weird considering it was already highlighted at Microsoft's conference. Oh, this was a pretty big thing. They announced that they are bringing 2 of the Saga games to the West for the first time. We're getting Romancing Saga 3 and Saga Scarlet Grace, both of which are coming to the West, which is really, really fun because I have played, I can't remember which one it was, but I did play a Romancing Saga game on the PlayStation 2, and I really enjoyed the way that it handled a non-linear storyline and multiple playable characters.
I don't have any personal experience with the franchise at all, so I don't think I can offer any input here.
Well, do you like mobile games?
No.
Okay, then I guess we won't spend a lot of time talking about Brave Exvius, which is basically Final Fantasy Tactics on mobile, from what I saw. They had a company called People Can Fly come out to show off a trailer for the game Outriders, which is, it looked like a sci-fi horror-esque shooter game. It's going to be 3-player co-op, but not only did we only see a cinematic trailer for it, they also did something that really makes me antsy about it. And that's, they had a video of just the devs talking about the game. And the last time something like that happened, at least in my memory, was with Mass Effect Andromeda. When you're talking about a game and the only thing you have to show is just the devs talking about it while working on assets of the game, that's a bit of a red flag to me.
Yeah, and I actually don't remember anything about this, even the cinematic trailer. I don't remember anything about it at all. But I do remember that I was completely baffled, and I still am, that so many different games... Look, I understand it when it comes to Battletoads. It's like there was always 3 characters. It was always a 3-player kind of thing. But why are suddenly all these different games going into like 3-player experiences? Like, what happened to 4-player? I mean, even 2-player I understood when it happened, but why are all these different things going into 3-player specifically?
I really can't tell you. I guess it's just a decision that the developers made that makes me think they think that's the best way to present their game. That's all I can really come up with.
And it's not just this, like I said, and not just Battletoads in this. There was at least like 4 or 5 different games at this E3 that are 3-player games.
Yep, we've talked about quite a few of them already too.
Yeah, it's kind of weirding me out a bit. It's like, I like the option of having it be 4-player. It's like, yes, I can play it 3-player if I want to, but I can also play it 4-player if I want to, because that's just the standard formula of like a group of friends on and around a couch, or like playing online together or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's always been kind of like the formula up till now. So are people just not spending time with their friends enough, or like have less friends than previous generations? Like, what is this?
I really don't know.
Most people have couches with 3 seats on them. So rather than force a 4th friend to sit on the floor and play games, we just made the game available to those 3 people that can fit on the couch.
We actually have to step back a bit because for some reason, I don't know how this slipped past me, I forgot to put in the notes that we had some mana games that were announced this year.
Yeah, I remember, like, I thought that's what you were going to talk about when we got to the Romancing Saga thing, but...
Yeah, like I said, I don't know how I forgot to put this in my notes, but I do remember it was actually pretty early on in the conference that this took place, and I just didn't realize it. They're doing a remake of Trials of Mana, which is the 3rd game in the Seiken Densetsu series. It was never released in the West, but it's getting a remake and being released here, which makes me very excited because from everything that I have seen and heard about it, it is a fantastic RPG. And they also followed that up with the announcement of the Collection of Mana, which is a collection of the first 3 games in the series. The first one was released over here on the Game Boy as Final Fantasy Adventure, then Secret of Mana, and then Trials of Mana, which is going to be the original SNES version, which is really cool, but I have a big problem with it. It was released the same day, so I went onto the eShop to check it out. It is $40 for what is essentially a Game Boy game and 2 SNES games. And it's not like they're adding in a bunch of extra stuff. I think they're including a digital art book with it, but other than that, you're charging $40 for games that are almost 15 to 18 years old now. And I did look it up. There is a physical version, but that's not releasing until the end of August. And I still think, even for a physical version, that is still way too much for what this is.
Yeah.
I love these games, but I am not comfortable paying $40 for games that are this old, honestly. So with that being said, I guess we will pick up where we originally were. They had a trailer for a game called Oninaki, which is a game that I really like the premise of, and it looks like it's got some fun hack and slash stuff in there. But I don't really have a whole lot to say about it right now. It's a game that I'm interested in, and I want to get my hands on it, but that's about it.
I don't remember that one.
It was the one that was talking about you play as a person who has to guide the souls of the dead to reincarnation, otherwise they become evil spirits.
Why don't I remember any of these?
You might have been pretty zoned out during this one. I can't remember what was going on at the time. It was pretty late in the evening when we watched this one.
Yeah.
After that, they announced the Final Fantasy VIII remaster at last. People were thinking it was never going to happen because Square lost the source code for the game, but apparently they found it again. And doing a side-by-side comparison, the models and everything look much, much better in this version. Final Fantasy VIII isn't one that I would go back to personally. It's not one of my favorite games in the series.
Me neither.
Yeah, but I am happy for people who really wanted this to happen.
There were a lot that really wanted it to happen.
Yeah, and that's also one less thing that people can shitpost about, which I'm grateful for.
Yeah, I'm grateful for anything that takes away shitposters' fun.
Yeah.
And Final Fantasy VIII, I remember liking Laguna.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I really enjoyed his theme, the man with the gun.
Mm-hmm.
The man with the machine gun.
Yeah.
That's what it was called. And, like, when I remember when a friend of mine, I think his name is Chris, I think he got really excited when he saw that song was in my music playlist, because apparently he's a huge Final Fantasy VIII fan. So good for him. He's getting Final Fantasy VIII.
And then they closed out on another extended segment. I would say maybe a little shorter, but pretty comparable in length to the Final Fantasy VII thing, on a new Avengers game. And it looks interesting, but the few smatterings of gameplay that were in the demonstration did look a little bit rough, I think. Like, the cinematics looked good, but the actual gameplay itself looked like it still needed some polish.
I felt like the game itself looked like it could be a bit reminiscent of what we got with the Spider-Man game, which was an amazing game. But the problem that a lot of people seem to have with it is that the character, like the character models seem to be very heavily inspired by the Avengers cinematic universe, and people are pissed about that because they're like, this isn't the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is a series of movies. We don't want a game trying to be the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We just want a game that is its own thing.
See, I hadn't heard that. What I had heard was people complaining about the fact that they didn't get the actors' likenesses in the game and are instead just using something that's more akin to the original comic book styles for them.
So somehow they found a middle ground that just pissed everybody off.
Apparently, yes. Also, what rubbed me the wrong way is that they did announce a season pass for the game for its online multiplayer mode, where they're going to consistently release new online missions that you can do with your friends, and they're going to release new heroes and villains you can play as time goes on, beyond just the Avengers.
Like the main cast of Avengers that we've all come to know.
Yes, pretty much. Like they teased in the future, if you buy the expansion pass, you'll get early access to like the X-Men expansion, and then the Fantastic Four expansion and the Amazing Spider-Man expansion. And that worries me when a company does that. Like, we haven't even really seen a good chunk of the game, and you're already trying to pry more money out of us.
Was that for this particular game? Because I remember the, which expansions did you say?
X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Amazing Spider-Man, I think.
Okay, because I remember, we'll get into this later, but the Marvel Ultimate Alliance game also has, like, some...
I might have been thinking of that, but I do know that they're doing something similar with this Avengers game.
Yeah.
So, that was Square Enix's, and I will say, they didn't show a lot of new stuff, but what they did show was stuff that I actually was interested in, stuff that I was actually excited to see. Whereas with Ubisoft, it was just Tom Clancy, Tom Clancy, Tom Clancy, and Bethesda was just dragons.
It was an embarrassing shit show.
Yes. Harsh words, but true. So now we finally get to I don't think you can deny that Nintendo won this year. They had the best presentation.
A lot of people are trying to argue that, but there is no arguing that. It's like, oh, they didn't have anything to show. It's like, what the heck are you idiots on about? They had something for literally everyone.
Exactly.
Nintendo was by far the highlight this year. Last year was a bit underwhelming because it was literally just Smash Brothers, Smash Brothers, Smash Brothers.
It was a good Smash Direct with some other stuff tacked on to the beginning, but that was it.
Yeah, which isn't what anybody really wanted. Yes, we knew they were going to talk about Smash Brothers and we were looking forward to it, but we didn't expect the majority of the entire thing to be just Smash Brothers, Smash Brothers, Smash.
Speaking of Smash Brothers, that is actually how they started this conference out, with the reveal that the hero from Dragon Quest was going to be the next character for the DLC Fighters Pass. And it's not just one specific hero, they're going to have 4 different skins for him from Dragon Quest 11, 8, 5, and the very first one, Erdrick.
Yep, and like a lot of freaking American plebeians are really upset about a Dragon Quest character. It's like, we didn't ask for this. Yeah, but guess who did ask for it and is super excited about it? Everyone in Japan, where the game was made and originated from. Smash Brothers isn't just made for you.
And considering how well Dragon Quest XI sold in the West, and it sold very well, I think it's the highest selling game in the series in terms of Western releases so far. It's fair to say that there are a lot of players in America that are also excited about it. I was really happy to see that.
Yeah, I was too, because it confirmed, like, just a lot of the rumors that Erdrick was going to be in the game. And it's like, oh, it's not Erdrick, it's the hero from Final Fantasy 11, and the hero from Dragon Quest 8, which is the one that I have the most experience with, and another dude who looks like a fucking dragoon from Final Fantasy, and oh, there's Erdrick, there he is after all, oh my god!
It was just a fantastic start. After that, they led into, of course, a quick trailer for Dragon Quest XI on the Switch, which highlighted the fact that you can play the entire game in a classic sprite style if you want, which did look really cool. And they apparently added in a lot of new story segments into this version of the game. But since I've already played and beaten the PlayStation 4 version, I will probably wait for a price drop if I ever plan on getting this one again.
Yeah, it's different when it comes to something like, say, Persona 5. We haven't actually finished that game, so the fact that the Royale version is coming out soon, we kind of want to get that, just so that if we are going to go back to it and take the time to finish it, we might as well do it with all the additional shit.
Yep.
But with Dragon Quest XI, it's like, been there, done that. Like, it was great when it initially came out and we finished it, but, like, you're not adding enough to it to make us want to, like, go back and replay the entire thing a second time.
At least not so soon after I had finished the first one.
Yeah.
So after that, we had a cute little segment that was meant to introduce us to Doug Bowser, who, of course, is the new president of Nintendo of America now that Reggie has retired. I think it's cute and cool. It was the obvious joke to do, but it's nice to see them still having their sense of humor.
Yeah, I found it a very cute and fun little introduction. What with Bowser and whatnot.
Bowser trying to speak and even put on a tie and everything. It was great. After that, we got a very extensive look at Luigi's Mansion 3, and I want that game in my hands right now because it looks so good and fun and wow.
Yeah, I actually played through Luigi's Mansion 2.
Yeah?
Yeah, Dark Moon, I actually played through that game.
I still haven't beaten it. I've restarted it twice now, trying to get through it, and I always get burnt out by, like, the end of the second or third mansion.
And something that I found very upsetting, though, when I actually played through Dark Moon, I think that I was a bit late in the game, and that's why when I tried to do the online game, the Scare Scraper, nobody was playing it. Like, literally, there was literally, if I was lucky, one game going at a time with one person in there just hoping to play with someone. And to see Scare Scraper is returning in Luigi's Mansion 3, it's like, great. Like, that means that I'll actually be able to play it with people this time around, just better.
With twice as many players, too. They're going to have 8-player co-op rather than just 4.
Yeah, because Guigi.
Yeah. And, of course, Guigi is also now, like, the big co-op mode thing for the main game, which does look pretty interesting, I think. A lot of the new moves that Luigi can do looks really, really interesting.
I wouldn't mind playing Luigi's Mansion 3 with you.
Oh, I wouldn't mind playing it with you. So, next we had one of the more bizarre things to come up, and it was one of the only real missteps of this, I personally feel. They announced that they were making a tactics game, based around the Dark Crystal, in conjunction with Netflix, because Netflix is putting out that prequel series to The Dark Crystal, which does look pretty good. I am excited for that. But I will say, as someone who has consumed many tactics games, this one looks very slow and very boring.
Yeah, it looked very underwhelming.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm looking forward to the return to the Dark Crystal series, the franchise and everything, but this game just doesn't look interesting at all.
I will have to see some actual uncut gameplay to have a full opinion on it, but from what I saw, even with the quick cuts they were doing, just like the movements and the motions and the attacks, it all looked really, really slow and really clunky.
Yeah.
Like, it reminded me of the tactics gameplay in the Utaware Rumono games, which are basically visual novels with some tactics gameplay tacked on. And the tactics gameplay in those games is very slow and clunky, and that's one of the reasons why those games gives you the ability to just skip the battles entirely if you're not interested. Then we got a quick look at the Link's Awakening remake. Still looks fantastic. I know a lot of people were kind of down on the toy aesthetic that it kind of has, but I'm digging it. I really like the look of the game. I like the color, and it's just going to be really fun to replay one of the games that I feel gets forgotten about a lot in the Zelda franchise.
Definitely not in the circles that I've been. A lot of the circles that I've been have been like, oh, they love Link's Awakening. I could never get very far in the very beginning of Link's Awakening, so it never really held a lot of sentiment towards me. But I've had plenty of friends that fucking love that game. And you know what I gotta say about the whole toy aesthetic? Ya bastard said the same thing about Toon Link.
Yeah.
And look how much he's come to become beloved.
How much everybody loves his game now, too.
Yeah, his game, his games. So, like, the fact that they went with something slightly different this time around, it's like, who cares? Like, did you expect it to be a fucking Ocarina of Time remake of the fucking thing? Of course not.
I will also say, while it doesn't look like they've added too much to the main game, the dungeon builder mode that they showed off near the end of the trailer looks really cool. It's not quite Zelda Maker, which a lot of people still want to see in the future, but I like that as a concept, being able to build and then explore your own dungeon and be able to earn actual rewards for it too.
Yeah.
I actually jumped the gun. It was not the Square Enix conference that this was in. It was this conference, because this is actually in my notes. They announced the Trials of Mana and Collection of Mana here. But we've already talked about that, so let's move on to the next point.
Okay.
Yeah, I got confused. This is one of the reasons why it's weird sometimes to have companies show off each other's stuff.
Yeah.
I think it was last year. Remember how many companies were showing off Kingdom Hearts 3, one after the other?
Yeah, there was at least 3 different ones.
And it was the same, essentially the same trailer every time.
It was the exact same fucking trailer every time.
So after that, one of the biggest surprise announcements, they're porting Witcher 3, the complete edition with all the DLC and everything, to the Switch, something that everybody said would never happen because of the power difference. And I will admit, there is some graphical downgrades to it. Like, you can tell it's not nearly as high def, but it looks like it plays really smooth. The gameplay that I saw afterwards, there was not a single stutter or jitter anywhere in it. So it might not look as nice as the PS4 version, but it's Witcher 3, and it's portable now.
Yeah. If I didn't already have the Witcher 3 Complete Edition on the PlayStation 4, I might consider getting this, but I need to save my money for other games and bills.
Yeah. Oh, bills. That thing that nobody can escape.
Bill Nye, the science guy.
Then we got a story trailer for Fire Emblem Three Houses. I was kind of surprised that there was no gameplay in this, but they did show like a half hour of gameplay at the treehouse afterwards, so I can't really complain that much. And it's coming out really soon. It's releasing in July, which that's going to be a day one buy for me.
Great, because I haven't even finished one of the story modes of Fates.
Well, it's not like you need to know what happens in Fates to understand this one.
I know, but like I want to finish it before. Like I actually played through Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. I actually played through Fire Emblem Birthright. The one with Chrom? No, that's not Birthright. What was that one?
Awakening.
Awakening. I actually played through Awakening.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to play through Fates, but it's just so... There's just so much there. They split it into 3 different fucking games and shit.
Awfully convenient of you to just ignore Shadows of Valentia, too.
What do you mean? I'm not ignoring it. I didn't play that one.
Exactly.
I'm not ignoring it. I mean, I can play that one, but, like, isn't that one hard?
It definitely has a bit of a steeper learning curve than the other Fire Emblems, but I don't think it's that much harder than Fates. I would say it's probably on par with Path of Radiance.
Path of Radiance was the hardest one I've played, so...
So after that, they lead into a cute little segment where 2 people are playing Resident Evil, the remake, in a haunted house, allegedly, which basically just led into the announcement that they're porting 5 and 6 to the Switch. 5, I'm okay with. I think it gets a bad rap. 6, less so, but it's nice to have all of them in one place, being able to have them all on one system.
Yeah, but I think this is the one instance during this E3 that we actually got, like, totally real gamer speak or whatever.
I guess you could call it that, considering how they were talking in the trailer, but it was brief, and it wasn't like it was super misleading. I mean, they were actually playing a game that was already out on the Switch, at least.
Yeah, but it also gave the people that were doing the drinking game something else to mark off on their bingo cards.
Pretty much, yeah. And then we lead into a cinematic trailer for No More Heroes 3, and oh, I was so happy to see this. I like the No More Heroes franchise. I haven't played Travis Strikes Again yet, but from what I hear, it's pretty underwhelming. So a lot of people were worried that this game might not happen, because according to Suda, whether or not No More Heroes 3 happened would be dependent on how well Travis Strikes Again sold. And apparently it sold fairly well, despite the fact that it's a pretty basic arcade hack and slash.
Yeah. I definitely need to, I either need to play or watch you play through the first 2 games, because I feel like that's where I'll get the best experience with No More Heroes.
Mm-hmm. I do still want to play Travis Strikes Again too, just for the experience. But I'm not paying full price for it, I don't think.
I think that one is 2-player, so I might play it with you.
It does have co-op, I do know that.
Yeah.
Then we got a trailer for a new Contra game, Contra Rogue Core, and it looked so bad. Like, just really, really rough. I believe it's a twin-stick shooter, but the actual graphical quality of the game and the way that the trailer was running, like, it looked really jittery, the gameplay that they showed.
Oh, yeah. Like, every Contra game that I've ever played has been, like, the 3D ones and stuff. They've been kind of like that.
They also did announce right afterwards that, again, much like the collection of Mana, releasing later that day, they would have a collection of 10 Contra games available for purchase as well.
I wonder if the one where the main character from the first Contra game kills his partner and ends up having to be recruited from a prison and team up with some sort of cyborg samurai dude to fight off an alien threat is in that collection.
Was it one of the classic ones? Because I think it was only like the 2D sprite ones that are in this collection.
Were there that many 2D sprite ones?
According to everything I saw in the trailer, yeah, I think so. But I don't think any of the 3D games are in this collection.
Well, it was one of the 3D ones, but Jesus.
Yeah. Then we had a trailer for Daemon X Machina. I did not get around to trying the demo for this game, and this was, again, mostly just a story trailer. It still looks kind of interesting. I do want to give the game a try.
It looked like there was a lot going on.
Yes, definitely. And from what I've heard of people that have played the demo, it does take some getting used to. It's not quite as fluid as something like Zone of the Enders. There is some weight to the mechs that you play. And then another out-of-nowhere announcement, we are getting a remake of the first Panzer Dragoon game, which I really liked. I liked playing that back when I still had a Saturn.
Once again, a bunch of plebeians have never heard of Panzer Dragoon. I didn't play Panzer Dragoon, but I've at least heard of Panzer Dragoon. I know what Panzer Dragoon is.
If it's a straight-up remake, though, I do hope that they add more to it, because the first Panzer Dragoon game was very, very short. because it was an arcade rail shooter, so of course it would be a little bit short. And I do hope that if it does well, we get more games in the franchise, because Sega, you have a bunch of really good franchises in your stable. It's time to start using them again. Give Sonic a break and stop making shitty Aliens games. Do something with, like, Panzer Dragoon and Golden Axe or whatnot.
Yeah.
Also, Alien Isolation is actually a good game. I was not referring to that one.
Altered Beast.
Altered Beast, yeah. They did try remaking that for the PS2, but apparently I can't remember if it was only released in Europe or if it ended up getting cancelled, but it was not a very good game. Anyway, we lead into another brief stint of talking from Shinya Takahashi of Game Freak, who talked a little bit more about Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I do think that this segment could have been cut, because this was not even a week after the Pokemon Direct that we had that gave us a bunch of new details about Sword and Shield. It was only there to introduce us to another one of the gym leaders, the water gym leader, Nessa, and also to try and shill for the Pokeball accessory that they were selling with Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. My guess is they still have a warehouse full of those things and they're trying to get rid of them.
Something that I really don't like, centered around Sword and Shield, is just how much hate it's getting before it even comes out. There's a bunch of people that are treating it like it's an insult to the franchise. Like, this one is finally going to show everyone how shitty the Pokemon franchise has become. Like, it's like, if you love the Pokemon franchise, wouldn't you want it to do well? Why are so many people up in arms about it? And it's like I saw one dude that, like, somebody apparently pointed out a bunch of, like, flaws that they noticed in trailers on Reddit. And this dude posts the screenshot of all of them plastered together, and it's like, it's so nice to be validated in my cynicism. I don't get it. Like, I have a group of friends that do love Pokemon, and we've all agreed, like, we are going to ignore all the hate that this game is getting before it even comes out, because we love Pokemon. We like the way that this game looks, the concept, the Pokemon. Like, they announced that this Pokemon count is going to go above 1,000. They even released something, I believe that there was something released saying that, yes, all the Pokemon are going to be in this game, despite what everybody was saying, like, oh, they revealed that not all the Pokemon are going to be in this game.
They did confirm that. The reason why they were saying 1,000 Pokemon is because this is the game that officially brings the total number of species above 1,000.
I know that, yeah. But I believe that there was a post that actually confirmed that all the Pokemon are going to be available, maybe it was that Pokemon Home thing that they have?
Well, you can put all the Pokemon in Pokemon Home that you want to, but you can only transfer Pokemon into Sword and Shield that are in the Galar Pokedex.
I feel like that's going to be patched at some point, but
I do hope so.
But like, a lot of people are being very understanding about that, in the ideal of, like, this is the first time that a Pokemon game has been on a home console, that has been on the Switch, and they have to, like, you know, take all these Pokemon assets that they have from the previous games and put it on here, and people are using the excuse they didn't have a problem taking them from, like, they didn't have a problem animating them all in black and white, they didn't have a problem making 3D models for them all in X and Y, so why would it take them so long this time? They have no excuse.
There are going to be growing pains. Like you said, this is the first mainline Pokemon game that's going to be on a console. It's very different from Let's Go.
Yeah, and if their argument is only, like, they didn't have problems in the previous games, well, this time it's different. How is it different? There are a million reasons why it's different. Stop your griping.
We've spent more time on this segment than I thought we would.
I'm sorry.
It's fine.
It's just, this is stuff that has been bothering me that's centered around the game. It's getting so much negative PR from people. And like I said, it hasn't even come out yet.
And I'd just like to point out, if you think that the game is going to be bad, then just don't buy it. But you're going to buy it anyway, because despite all of your cynicism, despite all of your hate, you're still going to buy the game anyway.
Yeah, it's like that goddamn joke from Concession, the webcomic. It's like, I'd like to buy some Skittles. Okay, that'll be $6. What? $6 for a small box of Skittles? I could go to the gas station down the street and buy the same Skittles for a fraction of the price. This is robbery. This is evil. And it's like, well, you're still gonna buy them anyways. And they're like, well, they are Skittles.
So we move on from the Pokemon segment, which again, I think could have been cut, and we move into an extended trailer for Platinum's new game, Astral Chain, which still looks really good. I am intrigued by it, and I really like the look of the gameplay style.
Yeah, but I still don't have a strong idea of what the hell is going on.
Well, it's basically like, I get more from the trailer than I do from most of From Software's trailers. But yeah, that is pretty much a hallmark of Platinum, is like, they just show you the really cool stuff, because these are the same people who make like Bayonetta and The Wonderful 101 and whatnot.
Right.
So after that, and it is coming out pretty soon, yet again, that's another one that's going to be coming out before the end of summer. We have a new game after that that's being made by Romero Games, which is headed by John and Brenda Romero. John Romero is probably most well known as one of the original designers who worked on games like Wolfenstein, Doom, and Quake. A lot of people are miscrediting this game, though. This is actually being headed by his wife, Brenda. Brenda Romero is the one who is making this game, and it's called Empire of Sin. They didn't really show much aside from some cinematics and a very brief glimpse of gameplay, so I wasn't sure if it was going to be like a twin-stick shooter or a not hack and slash, or a tactics game, but I do like the look of it. It's basically taking place in Prohibition-era America, and you play as gangsters who are smuggling around alcohol.
You know I love that era. You know that's like one of my favorite eras.
Yeah, and just the jazzy music that played during the trailer was really, really nice. So that is one that is definitely worth keeping an eye on, I think.
Yes, I'm definitely going to keep an eye on that because, like I said, I love that aesthetic. I love that era.
After that, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. The point of this trailer was more to highlight just how many more characters they were adding. And yes, it was this one that has the expansion pass for the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and Amazing Spider-Man.
I don't think that it was Amazing Spider-Man, though. It was Knights.
Yeah, Marvel Knights. That was it.
Yeah, it wasn't Spider-Man. It was Marvel Knights.
Okay, yes. But they also showed off a bunch of new characters in this, like they're going to have the Miles Morales Spider-Man, and also Elektra showed up as well.
Spider-Gwen and Miss Marvel from Spider-Gwen's universe. But where's Squirrel Girl? Where's Chubby Squirrel Girl from Spider-Gwen's universe?
But this was one that, when it was first revealed, especially, you were really excited about it, right?
Oh, yeah. Because I actually am a huge fan of the Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Mm-hmm. I actually played through the first Marvel Ultimate Alliance game, and I remember when I played through that game, I was like, why have I never heard of this game? This is amazing! I would love to get it again, in fact, because it's an amazing game!
Well, you're going to be able to play this one pretty soon because, again, coming out in July.
The second one, I never actually got to play the second one, but it takes place during the Civil War. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit odd because it's like it's heroes fighting against heroes and you have to pick a side, and both sides have like different heroes on them, and it definitely has its own unique continuity because I've actually read through the original Civil War, and like, yeah, there were a lot of like characters that were on like different sides.
It was a very politically charged book, which we're not going to get into here because a lot of strong opinions still on the actual comic version of Civil War. But moving on with Nintendo's conference, next we had a trailer for Cadence of Hyrule, which basically just let us know that it was coming out at the time that the conference took place. It was coming out 2 days later. I have since played it and beaten it, at least for a first run through. And I did it on the most basic of settings, like I had no random seeds or anything for it. I want to go back and play it some more. It was a really fun game.
I started playing it, and oh boy, we learned immediately that the map has a different layout in every playthrough that you do.
Yes. Well, I'm not sure because you didn't select random seeds either, so I'm not sure if it was just different because you selected Zelda when I selected Link, which might be the case, but we'll know when I start my second playthrough. Because I'm going to play through it at least one more time with random seeds on, just to see how different it is. Moving on, the next thing that they showed was Mario and Sonic at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. It looks better than Sochi.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only played a couple of those games, and they're fun time wasters, but again, they're not something that I feel comfortable paying full price for, personally.
I unfortunately have only played the first one, and everybody knows that one plays like a piece of shit.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It is such a piece of shit game. Like, literally, it's like you have to find this weird sweet spot in everything to actually do anything. If you move the controllers too fast, you don't do shit. If you move them too slow, you don't do shit.
Well, that was mostly just a consequence of the fact that it was using the vanilla Wiimotes at the time.
And it had so many problems. I actually returned to that game one day, years after it released, and I actually managed to play through the first segment of the game. I think I might have made it through the second segment even, but it was a challenge. It actually took effort for me to do that. And I remember when I initially played the game the first time, me and none of my siblings, none of my family could get past the first segment of the game, and the multiplayer element was only entertaining without all the different things unlocked. It was only entertaining for like 5 minutes.
I will say this new one, like I said, it looks like it's going to be fun. I like the idea of having new events. I always like the idea of new events. I hope they bring back the dream events from past games. Though, honestly, I would just like a proper game with Mario and Sonic in it at some point. Like, give me a proper platformer or RPG with these two franchises together, please.
Yeah, that way maybe Mario can rub off on Sonic and give him a good mainline game for once in a long while.
Well, so long as it's not made by Sonic Team, I think it will be fine. Anyway, after that, Midori squeed with glee when they showed the Animal Crossing trailer.
Yeah, I did.
I really like the idea behind this one. The idea that it's not an established town, but rather your job is to help facilitate the growth of a town on a deserted island, while also still paying off your debt to Tom Nook.
And that looks very interesting. I'm a little bit worried about... I'm worried that it's one of those games that, I don't know. Like, one of my big concerns about New Leaf, for example, was there was a limited amount of stuff that you could do in the game, and it seems like every Animal Crossing game tries to build itself off of the concept of interacting with other players. And even then, like, there's not a lot for everyone to do if they gather up together. So, like, eventually New Leaf just became, hey, girlfriend that I had at the time, do you want to come over to my town and steal all the stuff from my trees for the day? And it's like, yes, please!
Well, that remains to be seen. It does look like they are actually trying to add in a bit more of a progression system to this game.
Yes, and that's something that I am excited about, I will say. Like, for the cynical statement that I just had there and everything, it looks very interesting that they, like, have this element of, like, building stuff, and, like, you actually unlock, like, more stuff as you, like, pay off your debt and do more. So it seems really interesting. Like, you're not the mayor of a town, you're building a town. It's fascinating.
Mm-hmm. After that, we had a quick highlight reel, which, unlike the other montages that most of the other conferences did, it was a little bit shorter. They didn't show as many games during it, but each game got like a solid 5 to 10 seconds to actually show a good chunk of gameplay. I do wish that this was where they had highlighted Pokemon, because, like, they put Super Mario Maker 2 in the montage. It did not get its own segment at all.
Because it didn't need its own segment after the fact that we've talked about it already recently.
Exactly, which is why I wish they had done the same with Pokemon rather than giving it another segment earlier in the Direct. So after the montage, we got another surprise. They revealed the third downloadable character for Smash, and it was Banjo-Kazooie, and I was so happy.
Gumi was so incredibly happy about this.
Oh, my heart, when I saw the Jiggy fly across the screen, I couldn't contain it.
I couldn't believe it at first. Like, I was so shocked, like, wait a minute, that was a Jiggy? That was a Jiggy? Really?
Yeah.
That was a Jiggy.
And they look so good. They have their classic looks back. They're not in their stupid looks from Nuts and Bolts. Spiral Mountain looks amazing. And they did a joke within a joke because they parodied their own King K. Rool reveal trailer from earlier. And K. Rool apparently hangs out in Donkey Kong's house now. It's just, I am so happy. And I can officially say that apart from Geno, who I have pretty much laid to rest my hope for him getting into Smash, I am now at the point where I have no real wants for the roster for Smash Brothers anymore. I am completely satisfied. Whoever these last two characters are, that's just icing on the cake for me.
Yeah. And I will say that this is the biggest thing that ruined the fun of shit posters. Like, it was so funny when they revealed the Dragon Quest hero was going to be playable. Like, there was one shit poster who, throughout the Nintendo Direct, just was randomly throwing in there at inappropriate moments, like, that had nothing to do with Smash, just, Banjo never! Banjo-Kazooie never! Ha ha ha! And then, when the reveal happened, both of the shit posters, one of them just got quiet. Just quiet. The one that was saying throughout the whole thing, Banjo-Kazooie never. And he kind of like devolved into, well, you know, it's not that fucking great. You know, they don't look that good. Like that was something that a couple of people for some reason were saying, like, oh, they look so bad. Like, you're just salty.
Yeah.
And the other shit poster is just like, no, you bastards, you've ruined it, you ruined the joke, you ruined our fun, damn it.
Yeah, you know, because, you know, playing the game isn't nearly as fun as making fun of people who have actual wants for future content for the game.
I know, right? So it ruined all of their fun. It destroyed the legacy of the joke of Banjo and Kazooie never getting into Smash.
But guess what? They're home!
They're home. They're finally home.
Yes.
It's nice to have them back.
Yeah.
Even, what's his name? The creator of Banjo-Kazooie.
Rare.
No, the guy who made the game. He appeared in the first episode of Guest Grumps.
Well, he didn't make the game. He was the guy who made the music for the game. That's Grant Kirkhope.
Grant Kirkhope. Like, that's who I was thinking of. I remember he personally did a little thing with like showing off a Banjo-Kazooie plushie and being like, they're home.
Yes. He was very emotional about it on Twitter. He was very happy to see it as well. Especially since he was also the one who did the remixed music for Banjo-Kazooie for their stage as well. And that being said, they could have ended there. It was a very strong conference. They could have capped it off with that and everybody would have been happy. But of course, being Nintendo, they had to do just one more thing.
And it didn't end on a Smash Brothers note this time, surprisingly enough.
Yes, instead, we got a very well done, very creepy cinematic trailer that proudly announced that the Breath of the Wild sequel is in development. I don't think we're going to be seeing a lot about it for a while, because it just said in development, but oh my god, it looks so good.
It looks incredibly good, and finding out from them that this game is going to be even darker than Majora's Mask, like, wow,
Yeah.
that sounds really interesting.
And now they're not going to have a story that's taking place in the past, which I'm going to be very interested to see if they're going to keep the massive open world structure of Breath of the Wild while still having a story that's taking place in the present.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they're going to expand the map outwards any, but what I find interesting is that I believe something that they mentioned that is going to be a thing with this game is underground caverns. This like series of underground caverns that's underneath Hyrule, which is where we saw those glowing crystals and that mummified re-dead zombie god thing or whatever.
It's Ganondorf. Everybody is almost certain that it is some form of Ganondorf.
Because what we got was like not Ganondorf, it was Ganon the evil spirit.
Yeah, it was Calamity Ganon. And they basically said this is what happens when Ganon just lets go of any pretense of actually reincarnating into a mortal form. It's just pure distilled malice and hate.
But then what that must mean is that like what that kind of like tells me is that the backstory of Ganon in like, let's say the fallen hero timeline, after he gave up his humanity, there's still a shell of him out there somewhere, and the demon that reincarnates and wreaks havoc, it like slowly gets stronger and more filled with malice and more powerful and everything as every generation goes on. But there's that base body of Ganondorf out there somewhere, if that is Ganondorf. I don't know what the deal is with that weird goddess hand like in his chest, but I did see it like, I don't know, it looked like that same goddess hand like grabbed Link or Zelda when they were like falling. It was one of them, which means that it wasn't holding Ganon anymore, which means that Ganon woke up, blah blah blah.
I just really hope we get a playable Zelda. It's a pipe dream, I know, but like the way that they're setting it up, it seems like they're trying to suggest that the two of them are going to be together from the start of the game, which makes me think, is there going to be co-op in this game?
I just want playable Zelda.
Yeah.
Like, I would be fine playing through the entire game as just Zelda. Like, whatever this game is. It makes me curious, like, how the Master Sword is going to be done. Like, is the Master Sword going to be, like, non-existent in this game? Like, they put it back in the forest and they aren't using it anymore? Or something? Like, how is this sequel going to work? Because the Master Sword wasn't in Majora's Mask.
No, because Link had to put it back into the pedestal to put it back to rest because he was still a child in the main timeline.
Yeah, but like I am very curious to see how things are done in this one, and I want playable Zelda.
Yeah.
I wanted a playable female character in general with Breath of the Wild. It didn't need to be Zelda. I would have been fine with it being a, like, you know, Linkle. Like, you can choose to be Link or Linkle. Like, that would have been fine. But no, and like some people were just like, well, what about Zelda? And it's like, if you play as Zelda, then who would you save?
But they don't have that excuse in this one because they've established that Zelda is with Link, at least at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, but you know, they could pull the wool over our eyes and this demon could like grab...
Shh, let me dream.
I want to dream too, honey. I want to dream, but you know how misogynistic Nintendo's old ass bigwigs can be sometimes.
Well, on that note...
Are we really going to end on that note?
Well, I mean, where else are we going to take it? Thank you all for... Well, before we officially end, just in general, so my final ratings for all of these is Nintendo obviously is at the very top. Below them are Microsoft, then Square Enix, and then down below that, way down below that, actually, is Bethesda, and just below them is Ubisoft. That's how I feel about all of these conferences.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way, and everything else, especially EA, was just kind of like so far down into the toilet that it was being processed at a sewer plant.
Yeah, I'm still catching up on stuff that was only shown on the show floor, which is one of the reasons why we didn't talk about it a whole lot. So I'm sure there is stuff that we have missed, but in general, just going off of the conferences, this was, on the whole, a very boring E3. Again, mostly because it's a transitional period, but it just felt like nobody except Nintendo was bringing their A game this time. I mean, Ubisoft and Bethesda could have easily sat out this E3 or given all of their stuff to a different company to show off, and it would have affected nothing, I think.
Yeah, except the amount of yawns that I had.
Yeah, I will say, you definitely felt Sony's lack of presence this year. The fact that Sony was not there presenting anything was another reason why it felt like something was really missing this year. Like, they might not have had a very good show last year, but when they're not there at all, you feel it.
I suppose.
So here's hoping next year, since next year is definitely going to be the year where they're really pushing the new hardware and new consoles hard. So we're probably going to see a lot of launch titles. We're going to see a lot of end of the life cycle stuff that's being pushed out on the current gen hardware. And of course, Nintendo is just going to be good old Nintendo. So I do expect next year to be more exciting than this year, but there was some exciting stuff scattered throughout this E3.
There was.
I thought it was boring, but that just helped the good stuff shine even more. And also all of Nintendo.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
So thank you all for joining us on this very, very long discussion. We've been going nigh on 3.5, 4 hours now.
Yeah.
But it was fun. I enjoyed it. And let us know if you have any other topics of interest you'd like us to discuss in the future, and we will consider them.
Yeah.
So thanks again. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. We're gonna go have pizza.
And scene.